Chapter 281, The Suspicious Circumstances. Miss Winters, Eric said, his voice surprisingly soft despite his stern expression. While I have concerns about these incidents involving Miss Chase, I lack concrete evidence of any malicious intent. I could sense his reluctance as he ran a hand through his dark hair. His amber eyes remained fixed on me, calculating and intense. "You're just letting her go?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. "For now," he replied, his words measured and deliberate. "But understand this. I've faced many assassination attempts in my time. These accidents follow a suspicious pattern." I glanced back at Emma, who waited nervously in the hallway, worrying her lower lip between her teeth. "She's a healer, not an assassin," I countered, keeping my voice low. "She's clumsy, not calculating." Eric's jaw tightened. "Perhaps, or perhaps that's precisely what someone wants you to believe." Before I could respond, he gestured for Leo Vance to leave. The Omega complied, though not without shooting me a curious glance as he passed. Once we were alone, Eric stepped closer. "Walk with me," he commanded quietly. I followed him to the far corner of the room, away from the door where Emma might overhear. "I need to warn you," Eric said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Someone may be using your friend to get close to you." I fought the urge to roll my eyes. "You think someone is using Emma? That's ridiculous." "Is it?" His gaze sharpened. "Think about it. A series of convenient accidents that keep her in distress, requiring your constant attention and intervention. Each incident more dramatic than the last." I shook my head firmly. "You're being paranoid. It was just a medication mix-up." "A mix-up that could have been fatal," he countered. "Be careful, Scarlet, for Roman's sake, if not your own." His concern seemed genuine, which surprised me. I'd never thought Eric Blackwood particularly cared about my well-being beyond my connection to Roman. "I appreciate your concern, but Emma is my friend. I trust her completely." Eric didn't push further, merely inclining his head in acceptance. "As you wish. Take her then, but remain vigilant." I thanked him and turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. "And Scarlet, congratulations on your condition. Roman must be pleased." My hand instinctively went to my stomach as I stared at him in shock. How did he know? A rare, genuine smile touched his lips. "I make it my business to know things. Your secret is safe with me? For now." With those cryptic words hanging in the air, I left his room and rejoined Emma, who practically collapsed against me in relief. "Let's go home," I told her gently, guiding her toward the exit where Alaric waited with the car. The journey to the Thorn Pack house was strange. Emma sat beside me but seemed worlds away. Every few minutes, she would glance nervously out the windows as if expecting to see someone following us. "Are you okay?" I asked after her third time, checking over her shoulder. "Fine," she replied too quickly. "Just nervous about meeting your pack again after so long." Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she jumped as if she'd been shocked. She pulled it out, frowned at the screen, then quickly silenced it without responding. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "No one," she said. "Just a spam message." We fell into silence again. I tried to engage her about what had happened with her mother and Jason Reed, but each time I brought up the Northern Territories, she would suddenly remember something she'd forgotten to tell me about Eric Blackwood's villa, changing the subject entirely. As we passed through the Outer Territories toward the Thorn Pack's lands, Emma's eyes widened at the increasing number of security checkpoints. "There's so many guards," she whispered as we passed through the third checkpoint in under an hour. Alaric smiled slightly from the front seat. "The Alpha's mate deserves nothing less than absolute protection, Miss Chase." I noticed Emma's grip tighten on her small bag. Was it fear, nerves, or something else? When we finally arrived at the Thorn Pack house, Emma gasped audibly. The massive structure sprawled before us, its ancient stone foundations supporting newer, reinforced sections. Guards patrolled the perimeter with military precision. "It's like a fortress," she murmured, her voice tinged with what sounded almost like disappointment. "It is a fortress," I confirmed proudly, "the most secure compound in the Eastern Territories." As we entered the main house, I watched Emma carefully. She seemed to shrink into herself when certain pack members passed, particularly Hunter Stone, who nodded respectfully to me as we made our way to the guest quarters. You'll stay here, I told her, showing her to a comfortable suite not far from my own rooms. My mate has arranged for everything you might need. Emma nodded absently, her attention caught by the security panel beside the door. Is this alarmed? Of course, I replied. Every room in the private wing is, for protection. Something flickered across her face. Apprehension? Worry? Before she smiled weakly. Thank you, Scarlett. You've always taken such good care of me. I was about to respond when a familiar voice called out from down the hallway. Scarlett? My heart stopped, then raced. That voice, one I hadn't heard in 3 long years. Luna Catherine stood at the end of the corridor, her graceful figure silhouetted against the large windows. Her long, silver-streaked dark hair was pulled back in her customary braid, her blue eyes, so like Roman's, shimmering with unshed tears. Mom, I whispered, the words slipping out unbidden. I was running before I realized it, throwing myself into her arms like I was a pup again. She caught me easily, her embrace as strong and comforting as I remembered. You foolish, foolish girl, she murmured into my hair, her voice thick with emotion. Leaving without a word? Do you know how worried I've been? I buried my face against her shoulder, inhaling her familiar scent of lavender and sage. I'm sorry, I whispered. I thought I was protecting you. She pulled back just enough to cup my face in her hands. We protect each other in this family, Scarlett. We always have. Her eyes, so shrewd and observant, studied me carefully. A slow smile spread across her face as her gaze dropped briefly to my middle. So, she said softly, Roman tells me I'm to be a grandmother. Heat flooded my cheeks. I haven't had it confirmed yet, I admitted. Luna Catherine's smile only widened. Come with me. The healing wing has been waiting for your return. The Thorn Pack's healing wing was just as I remembered it. A perfect blend of traditional and modern medicine. The head healer, Dr. Marcus Bennett, greeted me with a warm smile and a respectful bow. The examination was thorough but gentle. When it was complete, Dr. Bennett couldn't contain his smile. Congratulations, Miss Winters, he announced. You are indeed with pup. I estimate you're approximately 8 weeks along. The reality of it hit me fully for the first time. A pup, Roman's and mine, growing inside me. When Roman arrived at the healing wing moments later, somehow already aware of the news, his normally controlled demeanor cracked. Joy, pure and unrestrained, transformed his features as he swept me into his arms. A pup, he whispered against my hair. Our pup. His hands were gentle as they cradled my still flat stomach, as if he could already sense the tiny life growing there. We'll need to enhance security for the nursery wing, he said, his practical nature reasserting itself even through his happiness. Hunter will oversee the renovations personally. I couldn't help but smile at his immediate shift to protection mode. Some things never changed. Luna Catherine approached us, her eyes shining. She carried a small wooden box inlaid with gold. This belongs to you now, she said, opening the box to reveal an intricately crafted gold amulet on a delicate chain. Moonstones and protective runes adorned its surface. It has been passed down through generations of Thorn Pack mothers. It will protect both you and the pup. As she clasped it around my neck, I felt tears spring to my eyes. This was more than just jewelry. It was acceptance, tradition, family. Later that evening, after Roman had been called away to deal with urgent pack business, Luna Catherine and I sat in her private sitting room sharing tea as we used to. Something's troubling you, she observed, her eyes missing nothing. I hesitated, then admitted, It's Emma. She seems different. Ever since she arrived in the European territories. Different how? Luna Catherine asked, setting down her teacup. I described Emma's nervous behavior, her odd reactions to security measures, her constant checking of her phone. Perhaps she's simply overwhelmed, Luna Catherine suggested. The European territories can be intimidating, especially for a sheltered Northern Territories healer, and Eric Blackwood is hardly the most comforting presence. Maybe, I conceded, though something still felt off. But I've known Emma for years. This doesn't feel like normal anxiety. Luna Catherine reached across to take my hand. Trust your instincts, Scarlett. They've rarely led you astray. She squeezed my fingers gently. But also give her time. Coming here, seeing how different your life is now, it might be a difficult adjustment. I nodded, trying to take comfort in her wisdom. And now, she said, her tone lightening, tell me everything about the Northern Territories. I want to hear it all. especially about how my stubborn son finally admitted his feelings for you." I smiled, setting aside my concerns about Emma for the moment. There would be time to figure that out later. For now, I was home, with family, and carrying the next generation of the Thorn Pack. Luna Catherine's eyes twinkled as she sipped her tea. "Begin at the beginning, dear, and don't leave anything out." Chapter 282, The Return of Darian, Roman's POV. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across my office when Hunter Stone burst through the door without knocking. His face was grim, jaw set in that way that told me trouble had arrived at our doorstep. "Alpha, Darian Morrison has been spotted at the eastern boundary," Hunter announced, his voice tight with barely contained anger. I set down my pen slowly, keeping my expression neutral though my wolf stirred beneath my skin. "Darian? What does he want?" "He's requesting a meeting with you," Hunter replied, his disgust evident. "The pack sentries have him contained at the border checkpoint." I leaned back in my chair, considering the implications. Darian Morrison hadn't dared approach our territory directly since his exile years ago. For him to come now when Scarlet had just returned and was carrying our pup. "Did he say why?" I asked, my voice deliberately calm. Hunter shook his head. "Just that he has information you need to hear. Information about Scarlet's safety." At the mention of my mate, my wolf surged forward, protective instincts flaring. I tamped them down with practiced control. "I'll meet him," I decided. Hunter's expression hardened. "Alpha, with all due respect, I strongly advise against it. We both know what Darian is capable of." His loyalty was unwavering as always. Hunter had been there when we discovered the Morrison family's betrayal, how Malcolm had plotted against my leadership after my father's death, how Lily had threatened Scarlet, and how Darian had supported them both. "Need I remind you," Hunter continued, his voice dropping lower, "that Darian still claims Scarlet was promised to him? He believes your father once suggested a mating between them." "I remember," I replied coldly. "My father had indeed made such a comment once, but only in jest." Darian had twisted that casual remark into an imagined right. "He's dangerous, Alpha," Hunter pressed, "especially now with Scarlet carrying your pup." I stood, decision made. "Arrange a meeting at the neutral clearing by Silver Creek. Bring 2 of our elite betas with you." Hunter knew better than to argue further. He nodded stiffly. "When?" "1 hour," I replied. "And Hunter, find Natalie. Tell her to keep Scarlet within the secure areas of the compound. No exceptions." "Yes, Alpha," he said, turning to leave. "One more thing," I called after him. "Don't tell Scarlet about Darian. Not yet." Hunter nodded in understanding. My mate had enough to worry about. Until I knew what Darian wanted, there was no need to disturb her peace. The clearing at Silver Creek was chosen for its strategic advantages, open enough to prevent ambushes, yet close enough to our territory for reinforcements if needed. I arrived precisely on time, flanked by Hunter and 2 of my most trusted beta enforcers. Darian Morrison was already waiting, standing alone at the center of the clearing. The years as a rogue had changed him. His once pristine appearance had given way to something wilder, his dark blonde hair longer, a prominent scar now marking his jaw, but his amber eyes remained sharp, calculating. "Roman," he greeted, his tone almost cordial. "It's been a while." "Not long enough," I replied coldly. "State your business, Morrison. Why are you here?" Darian's lips quirked into a half-smile. Still direct as ever. He reached slowly into his jacket, causing Hunter and the betas to tense. "Easy," Darian said, carefully withdrawing a leather portfolio. "If I wanted to attack, would I really choose to face you with 3 enforcers at your back?" I made no response, simply extending my hand for the portfolio. "Your mate is in danger," Darian said as he handed it over. "More specifically, your unborn pup is the target." My wolf surged forward with such force that my eyes flashed alpha red. I suppressed a growl. "Explain." "Open it," Darian instructed, gesturing to the portfolio. Inside were detailed reports, locations, dates, photographs of unfamiliar wolves. Maps with red markers indicated movement patterns along our eastern boundary. "Rogue wolves," Darian explained, "but not ordinary ones. They're organized, working with human operatives who provide them with technology and weapons." Hunter moved closer, peering over my shoulder at the documents. "These are remarkably detailed. How did you come by this information?" Darian's expression hardened. "I have my sources. Let's just say that rogue networks have their own hierarchies. I've worked my way into certain influential circles. I flipped through the pages, noting with growing concern the precision of the intelligence. Dates, times, patrol patterns, all meticulously documented. They're specifically targeting pregnant she-wolves from prominent packs, Darian continued. There have been 3 attacks in the northern neutral territories already. 2 resulted in miscarriages, 1 in the death of both mother and pup. The thought of Scarlet facing such a threat made my blood run cold. Why would they target pregnant she-wolves? I demanded. Darian's eyes met mine directly. Because a pack is most vulnerable when its future is threatened. An alpha whose mate and heir are in danger becomes unstable, makes mistakes. I assessed him coldly. And why are you bringing this to me? What's your angle, Darian? Something flickered across his face, an emotion I couldn't quite place. Believe it or not, Roman, I still care for Scarlet. Hunter scoffed loudly beside me. Darian shot him a sharp glance before continuing. I know she's your mate now. I've accepted that reality, but that doesn't mean I want to see her harmed. Your sister threatened her life, I reminded him icily. Your father plotted against my leadership, and you stood with them both. Forgive me if I find your concern for her well-being somewhat suspect. Darian's jaw tightened. I've made mistakes, grave ones, but this information is real, Roman. Ignore it if you want, but don't be surprised when they come for her. I studied him carefully. There was something different about him now, a wariness that hadn't been there before. The life of a rogue exacted its toll even on the strongest wolves. I'll have this verified, I finally said, closing the portfolio. If it proves accurate, I may reconsider your standing with the Thorn Pack. Hope flared briefly in Darian's eyes. That's all I ask. Don't mistake this for forgiveness, I clarified coldly. You're still exiled. If you approach our territory again without invitation, my enforcers have orders to shoot on sight. Darian nodded, accepting the terms. Understood. As we prepared to leave, Darian called after me. Roman. I paused but didn't turn. Congratulations on the pup, he said quietly. Fate may have chosen differently than I wished, but Scarlet deserves happiness. I offered no response, simply striding away with Hunter and the betas close behind. Whatever Darian's true motives, the information he'd provided couldn't be ignored. If there was even a chance that Scarlet and our unborn pup were targeted, I would take every precaution to keep them safe. I balanced the tea tray carefully as I approached Emma Chase's guest quarters. The poor thing had seemed overwhelmed since arriving at our pack house, jumping at shadows and barely making eye contact with anyone. I thought a friendly face might help her settle in. Emma? I called, knocking lightly on her door. It's Natalie. I brought you some tea. After a moment, the door opened to reveal Emma's pale face. Her eyes darted nervously over my shoulder before focusing on me. Oh, Natalie, thank you, she stammered, stepping back to let me in. The room was sparsely furnished but comfortable, with large windows overlooking the eastern gardens. Emma had unpacked her meager belongings, just a small bag's worth of clothes and personal items. I thought you might like to try Luna Catherine's special blend, I said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. It's calming without being sedative, perfect after a long journey. Emma smiled weakly as she sat across from me. That's very kind of you. I poured the tea, noting how her hands trembled slightly as she accepted the cup. You must be relieved to be away from Eric Blackwood, I commented, trying to put her at ease. I've heard he can be intense. At the mention of Eric's name, Emma's grip tightened on her cup, causing tea to slosh over the rim and onto her lap. Oh, she exclaimed, jumping up. I'm so clumsy, I'm sorry. I quickly handed her a napkin from the tray. No harm done. Are you all right, Emma? Fine, fine, she insisted, dabbing at the damp spot on her pants. Just tired from the journey, I think. Her eyes kept darting to the door as if planning an escape route. Something about her behavior struck me as odd. This wasn't just the natural nervousness of being in an unfamiliar pack territory. This was something different, almost like guilt. Would you like me to show you around the pack house? I offered. The gardens are particularly beautiful this time of year. Emma shook her head quickly. No, thank you. I think I should rest. It's been a lot to process. So I studied her for a moment. Scarlett had spoken fondly of Emma for years, describing her as kind, brave in her own quiet way, and fiercely loyal. The nervous, jumpy she-wolf before me didn't match that description at all. "Of course," I said, rising to leave. "If you need anything, my quarters are just down the hall. Or you can ask any pack member. They all know who you are." Emma's head snapped up at that. "They do?" "Naturally," I replied, watching her reaction carefully. "Scarlett's best friend is practically pack already. Everyone's been instructed to make you feel welcome." Emma swallowed visibly. "That's wonderful. Thank you." As I left her room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Emma's behavior wasn't just odd, it was suspicious. I'd grown up in the Thorn Pack, surrounded by politics and intrigue. I knew when someone was hiding something. I made my way directly to Luna Catherine's private chambers, knocking softly before entering. My adoptive mother looked up from her book, her keen eyes immediately noting my concerned expression. "Natalie? What troubles you, dear?" I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. "It's Emma Chase. Something's not right with her." Luna Catherine marked her page and closed her book. "Not right how?" "She's anxious, jumpy. When I offered to show her around the pack house, she practically panicked. She keeps looking at the doors and windows like she's planning an escape route." Luna Catherine frowned slightly. "Perhaps she's simply overwhelmed. The Thorn Pack can be intimidating to outsiders, especially one from a smaller northern pack." "It's more than that," I insisted. "This isn't about being intimidated. This is, I don't know, it feels like she's hiding something." My adoptive mother's expression grew thoughtful. "Scarlett trusts her implicitly." "I know." So I acknowledged. "That's what worries me. If someone wanted to hurt Scarlett, getting close to her through a trusted friend would be the perfect strategy." Luna Catherine nodded slowly. "I'll speak with Roman when he returns. In the meantime, keep an eye on our guest. Be friendly but watchful." I stood to leave, but Luna Catherine caught my hand. "And Natalie? Let's not worry Scarlett with this yet. In her condition, stress is the last thing she needs." "Of course," I agreed, sort of squeezing her hand reassuringly. Chapter 283, The Winter Pack's Downfall. I was enjoying a quiet morning in the Thorn Pack's garden when Hunter Stone approached me. His usually stoic face showed a hint of satisfaction that immediately piqued my interest. "Miss Winters, I have news from the Northern Territories you might find informative," he said, handing me his secure pack tablet. I took it, raising an eyebrow. "Is everything all right, Hunter? See for yourself." The tablet displayed internal pack communications, reports with satellite images of the Winter Pack compound. What had once been a bustling hub of activity now looked abandoned. The sprawling grounds were empty, gardens untended, and the massive parking area that once held dozens of luxury vehicles stood vacant except for 2 older models. "The Winter Pack has lost over 80% of its members to neighboring packs," Hunter explained, his voice neutral but his eyes watchful of my reaction. "Most left within the last month when resources became critically depleted." I scrolled through the images, feeling strangely detached as I stared at my birth family's crumbling legacy. One photo showed the grand entrance hall of the main pack house, now dusty and dim, furniture covered with sheets like ghosts of a former life. "What about Grace?" I asked, curious despite myself. Hunter swiped to another report. "Her condition has deteriorated rapidly. Without the expensive, moon-blessed herbs she requires, the silver poisoning has accelerated. She's been moved to a small, dilapidated healing center on the outskirts of Winter Territory." The attached image showed a rundown building that looked like it hadn't been properly maintained in decades. "No respectable pack healer will treat her anymore," he continued. "They refuse to have her in their facilities after what happened." I nodded slowly, absorbing this information. Grace Winter, the she-wolf who had stolen my birthright, plotted my death, and clung desperately to Alexander Amber, reduced to this. The irony wasn't lost on me. "And Sarah Winter?" I asked. Hunter's expression darkened slightly. "Still in territory custody for her attack on Jennifer Moore and her infant. The guards report she's fallen into a deep depression." He hesitated, then added, "She spends her days calling out for her children, for Daniel, and for you." That caught me off guard. Sarah Winter calling for me? The woman who had treated me with contempt when she discovered I was her biological daughter? who had continued favoring Grace even after learning the truth. "And Daniel?" I asked, moving past the uncomfortable revelation. Hunter showed me footage of Daniel entering a pawn shop carrying what appeared to be antique silver candelabras, family heirlooms I recognized from formal dinners at the Winter Pack house. He's struggling to maintain even basic pack operations. With resources depleted and most members gone, he's resorted to selling family heirlooms just to provide food for the few elderly wolves who've remained loyal. I handed the tablet back to Hunter, my expression carefully neutral. "Thank you for the information." He studied me for a moment. "You don't seem surprised. Actions have consequences, Hunter. They're reaping what they sowed." Hunter nodded with approval. "Indeed, Miss Winters. After he left, I placed a protective hand over my still flat stomach. My unborn pup would never know the cruelty of the Winter Pack. They would be raised in the strength and loyalty of the Thorn Pack, surrounded by those who truly understood what family meant." That evening at dinner, Luna Catherine noticed my unusually quiet demeanor. "You seem distracted, dear. Is everything all right with the pup?" The dining table was set with elegant simplicity. Luna Catherine never believed in excessive formality for family meals. Roman sat at the head, with me to his right and Luna Catherine to his left. Natalie sat beside her adoptive mother, occasionally casting curious glances my way. "The pup is fine," I assured her with a small smile. "Hunter briefed me on the Winter Pack situation this morning." Roman's eyes met mine across the table. "I intended to tell you myself, but Hunter was eager to deliver the news." Luna Catherine set down her fork. "The reports are quite grim. The Winter Pack has essentially collapsed." Natalie leaned forward. "Good riddance. After what they did to Scarlet, they deserve worse." I appreciated her fierce loyalty, but chose to shift the conversation. "Let's talk about something more pleasant. Roman and I have been discussing dates for the mating ceremony." Luna Catherine's eyes brightened immediately. "Already? That's wonderful news." Roman reached across to take my hand. "We're thinking next month, before Scarlet's condition becomes too obvious. A small ceremony with just pack members and close allies." "Perfect timing," Luna Catherine agreed. "The gardens will be in full bloom by then." We spent the remainder of dinner discussing ceremony preparations, traditional Thorn Pack rituals, the guest list, and Luna Catherine's plans for the celebration. Not once did I bring up the Winter Pack again, focusing instead on the future rather than the past. Later that night, as Roman and I prepared for bed, he finally asked the question he'd been holding back all evening. "You didn't react at all to the news about your birth family," he observed, watching me brush my hair at the vanity. "Do you truly feel nothing for them, little wolf?" I set down the brush and turned to face him. "They made their choice years ago when they chose Grace over me," I replied coldly. "Then they conspired with Alexander Amber to harm me. Why would I feel anything for them now?" Roman approached, resting his hands on my shoulders. "I respect your decision. They've earned their fate." His thumbs traced gentle circles on my skin. "But I worry about you carrying this hatred, especially now during your pregnancy. Negative emotions can affect the pup." I hadn't considered that. The thought of my bitterness somehow harming our unborn child made me pause. "I don't hate them," I said after a moment, surprising even myself with the realization. "Not anymore. Hatred requires energy I'm no longer willing to spend on them." Roman's expression softened. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "Then what do you feel?" I considered his question carefully. "Nothing. I don't wish them well, but I no longer actively wish them harm either. They simply don't matter anymore." He seemed satisfied with this answer, pulling me into a gentle embrace. "That's healthier than hatred, little wolf, for both you and our pup." I leaned into his warmth, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my cheek. The Winter Pack had never given me this safety, belonging, unconditional love. The Thorn Pack was my true family and Roman my true mate. That night, my dreams betrayed my waking indifference. I saw Sarah Winter in her territory cell, frail and broken, calling out names in the darkness. "Daniel," she cried, her voice hoarse with desperation, then softer but more painful. "Scarlet, my daughter. Forgive me." I woke with a gasp, my nightgown damp with sweat. Roman stirred beside me, instantly alert. "What's wrong?" he asked, reaching for me in the darkness. I shook my head, trying to dispel the lingering echo of Sarah's voice. Nothing, just a dream. About what? His hand found mine under the covers, warm and steady. It doesn't matter, I said, settling back against the pillows. Just pregnancy hormones affecting my sleep. Roman didn't press further, simply drawing me closer against his chest. His breathing soon returned to the deep, steady rhythm of sleep, but I remained awake, staring at the ceiling. It was easier to blame hormones than to admit that somewhere, buried deep beneath layers of justified resentment, a tiny part of me still remembered that Sarah Winter had given me life. Even if she had never given me love. Chapter 284, Alexander's Revelation. The quiet study of the Amber Pack house was shattered by the sound of papers slapping against the wooden desk. Alexander Amber stood before his father, James, his entire body rigid with barely controlled rage. His hands trembled as he pointed at the letters he'd just thrown down. "Explain these," Alexander demanded, his voice dangerously low. James Amber, the Northern Alpha King, merely glanced at the scattered correspondence before leaning back in his leather chair, looking remarkably calm for someone confronted with evidence of his betrayal. "Where did you find those?" James asked, his tone more curious than concerned. "Mother was organizing your old correspondence. She thought I might want to review some of your past territorial negotiations." Alexander's jaw clenched. "Instead, I found years of letters between you and Grace Winter." Alexander picked up one particularly damning letter. "You knew all along, didn't you? That Scarlet Winters grew up in the Thorn Pack? That she had connections to Roman Thorn?" James's expression hardened slightly. "Of course I knew. I make it my business to know everything about potential mates for my son and heir." "And this." Alexander held up another letter, dated just before Scarlet's return to the Winter Pack. "You actively encouraged Grace's schemes against Scarlet. You supported her jealousy, her plots." James stood slowly, his alpha presence filling the room. "I did what was necessary to protect our territory. Roman Thorn was positioning his adopted sister as a way to gain influence in the Northern Territories." Alexander let out a bitter laugh. "And instead of warning me, instead of being honest about the potential political complications, you chose to support a jealous Omega's plots against an innocent she-wolf?" "Grace Winter loved you," James replied sharply. "She was willing to do anything to keep you. That kind of loyalty is valuable in a mate." Alexander's hands clenched into fists. "Grace tried to have Scarlet killed. She conspired with rogues. And you," his voice broke slightly, "you knew. You encouraged it." James walked around his desk, his expression hardening. "Politics requires difficult decisions, son. One day when you're Alpha King, you'll understand." "Understand?" Alexander's voice rose. "You manipulated me. You pushed me toward Grace knowing she was plotting against Scarlet." Their voices echoed through the hallway outside, drawing the attention of several pack members who paused, listening to the heated exchange. "Lower your voice," James ordered, his eyes flashing alpha red. "This is a private matter." "Private?" Alexander laughed bitterly. "Like how you privately coached Grace on how to play the victim when she was caught? Like how you privately arranged for evidence against her to disappear?" James's face darkened with anger. "I did what was best for our pack. Roman Thorn is dangerous. His influence in the Eastern Territories grows daily. If he gained a foothold in the North through Scarlet's connection to you. So you sacrificed an innocent she-wolf's safety? Her reputation?" Alexander's voice cracked with disbelief. "For what? Your paranoia about Roman Thorn?" Several beta wolves had gathered in the hallway now, whispering among themselves as they listened to the argument escalating behind the study door. "It wasn't paranoia," James growled. "It was strategy. The Winter Pack is old allies with us. Grace was a suitable mate for you. She knew her place. Scarlet was unknown, dangerous with her connections." Alexander shook his head in disgust. "You're talking about she-wolves like they're chess pieces. Scarlet nearly died because of Grace's schemes you encouraged." "Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good," James replied coldly. The study door suddenly swung open, revealing Victoria Amber standing in the doorway, her face ashen. The argument had clearly drawn her from another part of the house. "James?" she whispered, her voice small and broken. "Tell me I didn't just hear you admit to supporting Grace Winter against Scarlet." James turned to his mate, his expression shifting to one of concern. "Victoria, this is a complex situation. Answer me, Victoria demanded, her voice stronger now, though her body trembled. Did you knowingly support that she-wolf's plots against Scarlet Winters? The silence stretched between them, heavy and damning. I did what was necessary for our pack's security, James finally replied, his voice firm. Victoria staggered as if physically struck by his words. Her hand clutched at her chest, her breathing suddenly labored. All this time, she gasped, I blamed Alexander for his poor judgment. But it was you, manipulating everything from the shadows. Alexander rushed to his mother's side as she swayed dangerously. Mother? Victoria's face contorted in pain, her knees buckling beneath her. My heart, she gasped before collapsing into her son's arms. Mother! Alexander cried out, lowering her gently to the floor. Someone get help, now! The gathered pack members broke into frantic action, one rushing for the pack healer, another calling the territory emergency services. James stood frozen, staring at his mate's pale face as Alexander frantically checked her pulse. Victoria, he whispered, finally moving toward her. Alexander's head snapped up, his eyes flashing dangerously. Don't come near her. This is your fault. The pack healer arrived within minutes, quickly assessing Victoria's condition. Heart attack, he confirmed grimly. We need to get her to the treatment center immediately. As Victoria was rushed away on a stretcher, Alexander turned to his father, rage and grief warring in his eyes. His control finally snapped, his wolf surging forward as his hands transformed, claws extending dangerously. You did this? He snarled, advancing on his father. Your lies, your manipulations, they've destroyed our family. James stepped back, genuinely shocked by his son's physical transformation, a clear challenge to his authority. Control yourself, Alexander. But Alexander was beyond reason, grief for his mother overwhelming his restraint. He slashed at the air between them, missing his father by inches. Alexander, James roared, his alpha command filling the room. Stand down now. Several beta enforcers had entered the study, watching the confrontation with wide eyes. No one had ever seen Alexander challenge his father so directly, so violently. Lock him in his quarters, James ordered the enforcers, his voice cold with fury. My son needs time to cool his head and remember his place. Alexander didn't resist as the enforcers took his arms, though his eyes remained fixed on his father with naked contempt. Everyone will know what you've done, he promised. Every pack in the Northern Territories will learn how the great Alpha King James Amber betrayed his own family's honor. As Alexander was led away, whispers already spread through the pack house like wildfire. By midday, everyone knew about Victoria's collapse and the violent argument that preceded it. In the servants' quarters, a young beta maid carefully approached a spare bedroom where Ethan Amber, James's illegitimate son, had been given temporary accommodation since his arrival at the pack. Mr. Ethan, she whispered, knocking softly, I thought you should know what's happened. Ethan opened the door, his young face composed despite the chaos around him. Though barely 20, there was something in his eyes that spoke of wisdom beyond his years. Tell me everything, he said quietly, gesturing for her to enter. As the day progressed, more pack members found reason to visit Ethan's quarters. Some brought reports on Victoria's condition, others offered their support to the young wolf they saw as unfairly disadvantaged by his birth. Alexander lacks the necessary ruthlessness to lead in these difficult times, one senior beta told Ethan as they spoke privately that afternoon. He's too emotional, too conflicted. The pack needs strength now more than ever. Ethan listened carefully, his responses measured and thoughtful. He neither accepted nor rejected the implicit offers of support, merely thanked each visitor for their concern about the pack's future. By evening, clear divisions had formed within the Amber Pack. The younger wolves and those who had served under Alexander's direct command remained loyal to him, believing James had betrayed the family's honor. A growing faction, impressed by Ethan's charisma and strategic thinking despite his youth, began to whisper about alternative succession plans, and a dwindling few, mostly older pack members who remembered James's early days of leadership, stood by the current Alpha King. The once proud Amber Pack, already weakened by the fallout from the Winter Pack scandal, now teetered on the edge of civil conflict. As darkness fell over the pack house, 3 distinct paths forward had emerged, each threatening to tear the pack apart from within. Chapter 285. suspicious movements. I stood at the edge of the territory border, my wolf bristling beneath my skin as I waited. The cold wind carried unfamiliar scents from the neutral zone, making me even more alert. This meeting wasn't something I'd normally agree to, but the information I'd received left me no choice. I checked my watch impatiently. If this was some sort of trap, I'd make sure Darian Morrison regretted his entire existence. The message he'd sent had been cryptic but urgent, mentioning Hazel's name, the one thing guaranteed to get my attention. A twig snapped in the distance, and I immediately tensed, my claws extending slightly from my fingertips. "You're punctual," came a smooth voice from the trees. "I appreciate that in a potential ally." Darian Morrison emerged from the shadows, looking far more disheveled than the last time I'd seen him. Life as a rogue had clearly taken its toll on the once pristine Beta. "I'm not your ally," I replied coldly. "I'm here because you mentioned a threat to Hazel. Start talking or start running." Darian's lips curled into a hollow smile. "Direct as ever, Connor. That's why I contacted you instead of Roman Thorn. My patience was wearing thin. You have 2 minutes before I decide this was a waste of time." "Very well." Darian pulled out a small data tablet, tapping it to life. "There's an organized group targeting she-wolves from powerful packs across all territories." He handed me the tablet, displaying surveillance photos, coordinates, and movement patterns. "They're gathering intelligence on key she-wolves, including Roman's mate, Scarlet Winters, who's currently pregnant. And also," he paused, meeting my eyes directly, "Hazel Walsh." My grip tightened on the tablet, threatening to cock its screen. "Why Hazel? She holds no official position." "Because of her connection to you." Darian's voice was matter-of-fact, and potentially because of her brother's reputation as a healer. I scrolled through the data, anger building with each image. There were surveillance photos of Hazel from angles that suggested whoever took them had been dangerously close to her. Why come to me with this? Why not take it to Roman? Darian's expression hardened. I already did. But Roman's focus is solely on protecting his mate and unborn pup. He's increased security around the Thorn Pack compound, but he won't extend resources to protect others. That sounded like Roman, ruthlessly practical when it came to his priorities. "So you're proposing what, exactly?" I asked, handing the tablet back. "An alliance of convenience. I have intelligence networks you don't. You have enforcers I lack. Together, we can identify these threats before they materialize." I considered his proposal carefully. Working with a rogue like Darian Morrison went against everything I stood for as an alpha. But if Hazel was truly in danger, "I'll coordinate security efforts with you," I finally said. "But understand this. We're not allies. I'm not joining forces with the Thorn Pack, and I maintain complete independence in how I handle threats to my own." Darian nodded. "That's all I asked for, a mutual exchange of information and occasional resources." We spent the next 30 minutes discussing specifics, secure communication channels, shared intelligence protocols, and neutral meeting points. Despite my distrust of Darian, I had to admit his knowledge of rogue networks was extensive. As we concluded our meeting, a faint rustling sound caught my attention. My head snapped toward a cluster of trees about 50 yards away. "Someone's there," I growled, already moving in that direction. The scent hit me before I could take 3 steps, familiar, beloved, and absolutely the last person I wanted to find here. Hazel stepped out from behind the trees, her eyes wide with shock and what appeared to be disappointment. "Hazel," I breathed, freezing in place. Her gaze darted between me and Darian Morrison, her expression hardening with each second. "So this is where you've been sneaking off to? Secret meetings with rogues?" Darian, with surprising tact, stepped back. "I'll leave you two to discuss this privately. Same time next week, Reynolds." With that, he melted back into the forest, leaving me alone to face Hazel's anger. "It's not what you think," I began, approaching her cautiously. Hazel crossed her arms, her posture rigid. "Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the alpha of the Reynolds pack is conspiring with an exiled rogue." "I'm protecting you," I said, stopping a few feet away from her. "Darian brought information about a group targeting she-wolves from influential packs. Your name was on their list." To my surprise, Hazel laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that cut through me like a silver blade. "And there it is again. Always protecting me. always making decisions for me, never trusting me enough to include me in those decisions. I reached for her arm, but she stepped back. Hazel, this is serious. These aren't just routine threats. Then tell me exactly what's happening, she demanded. All of it, not just the parts you think I can handle. I hesitated, torn between my instinct to shield her and her clear demand for transparency. I can't, I finally admitted. Not all of it, not yet. Her eyes flashed with hurt and anger. And that's exactly our problem, Connor. You say you trust me, but your actions prove otherwise. This isn't about trust, I argued, frustration building. It's about keeping you safe while I gather more concrete information. No, it's about control, Hazel countered, her voice rising slightly. You can't stand that I've started making my own decisions, forming my own alliances. You're terrified of losing your grip on me. Her words cut deep because there was truth in them. I had always been protective of Hazel, perhaps too protective. That's not fair, I said, my own temper rising to match hers. Everything I've done has been for your safety, your well-being. And what about what I want? Hazel challenged. Did you ever consider that maybe I don't want to be treated like a fragile artifact that needs to be locked away for safekeeping? We stood at an impasse, the rift between us widening with each heated word. Part of me wanted to grab her, to make her understand the very real dangers that threatened her. Another part recognized that doing so would only drive her further away. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said finally, my voice low, but I won't apologize for trying to protect you. Hazel's expression softened for just a moment, then hardened again. And I won't apologize for demanding to be treated as your equal, not your possession. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back over her shoulder. Whatever you're planning with Darian Morrison, be careful. Rogues rarely have straightforward motives. As I watched her walk away, I felt a familiar ache in my chest. Every interaction seemed to push us further apart, deepening the rift between us. Yet I couldn't bring myself to tell her everything, not when the full truth might put her directly in harm's way. I walked away from Connor, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. Of all the things I'd imagined when I followed him today, finding him in a clandestine meeting with Darian Morrison, a known rogue and enemy of the Thorn Pack, hadn't even crossed my mind. For days, I'd noticed his increasingly secretive behavior, whispered phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered a room, mysterious absences explained away with vague references to pack business. My instincts told me something was wrong, and I'd been right. The cool forest air did little to calm the storm of emotions inside me. Why couldn't he just be honest with me? Why did every conversation have to become a power struggle? He's protecting you, a small voice in my head whispered. That's all he's ever done. But protection had become a prison. Connor's obsessive need to shield me from every possible danger had stifled my growth, my independence. The recent attack had been a turning point, proof that despite his best efforts, he couldn't control everything. Rather than acknowledging this, he doubled down, becoming even more secretive and controlling. I slowed my pace, replaying the conversation in my mind. The mention of a group targeting she-wolves from powerful packs was concerning, especially if my name was indeed on their list. But why turn to Darian Morrison of all people? The exiled wolf had a reputation for manipulation and self-interest. Unless Connor was desperate, truly desperate for information and resources that traditional pack channels couldn't provide. That thought gave me pause. Connor Reynolds was many things, but reckless wasn't one of them. If he was willing to ally with a rogue, even temporarily, the threat must be significant. I stopped walking, considering my options. I could continue this pattern, pushing against Connor's protectiveness, demanding independence while he insisted on control. Or I could try something different. My phone buzzed in my pocket, interrupting my thoughts. The number was unfamiliar, but the message made my blood run cold. Watch your back, Hazel Walsh. The Reynolds pack can't protect you forever. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This was no coincidence, not after what I'd just overheard about threats to she-wolves from powerful packs. My first instinct was to call Connor, to run back to the safety of his protection, but that would only reinforce the dynamic I was trying to break. Instead, I took a screenshot of the message, then dialed a different number. Scarlett, it's Hazel. I need your help with something, but you can't tell Connor or Roman." The line was silent for a moment before Scarlett responded, her voice concerned. "What's going on, Hazel? I think we're all in more danger than we realize, and I'm tired of being kept in the dark about it." This confrontation with Connor had deepened the rift between us, but perhaps it was also an opportunity, a chance to forge my own path while still working toward our shared goal of safety. Not as his protected she-wolf, but as his equal partner. Chapter 286, Damien's Arrival. The early morning security alert pulled me from important paperwork. Hunter's voice crackled over the secure pack line with unusual urgency. "Alpha, there's a wounded rogue at the eastern border checkpoint. He's demanding to speak with you personally." I frowned, immediately suspicious. "Identity?" "Claims to be Darian Morrison." My grip tightened on the phone. Darian Morrison, brother to Lily, who had threatened my mate, and son of Malcolm, who had attempted to undermine my leadership after my father's death. The entire Morrison family had been exiled years ago. "His condition?" I asked. "Multiple lacerations, possible silver poisoning. Says he has critical intelligence about a plot against the Eastern Territory's leadership." I considered my options carefully. Rogues rarely approached established pack territories unless desperate or unless setting a trap. "Secure him. Full protocol. Bring him to the interrogation chamber." "Yes, Alpha." I ended the call and immediately contacted the head of security to heighten all perimeter defenses. Whatever Darian Morrison wanted, I wouldn't risk Scarlett or our unborn pup. An hour later, I stood behind the one-way mirror of the Packhouse's secure interrogation chamber. Damian sat handcuffed to a reinforced chair, his wounds partially treated but still visible. Blood seeped through bandages on his forearm and shoulder, and bruises bloomed across his face. Hunter entered first, his face expressionless as he set a tablet on the table between them. "Start talking," he ordered. "Why come here when you know you're exiled?" Damien's eyes, amber like his sister's, flicked toward the mirror. Though he couldn't see me, he knew I was there. "I need to speak with Roman directly," he insisted, wincing as he shifted in his chair. "You'll speak to me first," Hunter replied coldly. "If I find your information credible, maybe. Alpha Thorn will consider hearing you out." Damien's jaw tightened, but desperation won over pride. "Fine. There's a coalition forming, rogue packs joining with human organizations that know about our kind." My interest sharpened. Cooperation between rogue wolves and humans with knowledge of our existence was rare and extremely dangerous. "What's their objective?" Hunter pressed. "Destabilization of the major territories," Damian answered, his voice hoarse. "They're specifically targeting pregnant mates of powerful alphas." My blood ran cold. "Scarlett, our unborn pup." Damian continued, detailing surveillance operations, weapons trafficking, and infiltration plans that showed concerning levels of organization. Hunter recorded everything, occasionally asking pointed questions to verify details. After 30 minutes of this, I'd heard enough to justify direct intervention. I entered the chamber, my presence causing Damian to straighten despite his injuries. "Roman," he acknowledged, a complex mix of emotions crossing his face. I remained standing, maintaining the power dynamic. "Why bring this to me? Why not sell this information to the highest bidder?" "Because my sister is involved," he admitted, surprising me with his candor. "Lily has allied herself with Vincent Gray. They're pooling resources, recruiting rogues with grievances against established packs." "And you suddenly developed a conscience?" I asked skeptically. Damien's expression hardened. "I never wanted war with the Thorn Pack. That was my father's vendetta, not mine. Yet you stood with them when they plotted against me, when Lily threatened Scarlett." "I was wrong," he said simply. "I've had years in the wilderness to reflect on my mistakes." Before I could respond, the door opened behind me. Natalie entered with the quiet grace that characterized her movements. "Roman, Luna, Catherine asked me to inform you that—" She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes landing on Damian. Something remarkable happened then. Damien's entire demeanor changed. His focus completely abandoned our conversation, fixing instead on my sister with an intensity that immediately put me on alert. "The security reports you requested are ready," Natalie finished, clearly uncomfortable under his scrutiny. She turned to leave quickly. "Wait," Damian called, straining against his restraints. "Don't you remember me? I pulled you from the river during the Silver Ridge conflict. Natalie froze in the doorway, turning slowly. Her usually composed expression gave way to shock as recognition dawned. "That was you?" she whispered. The charged silence between them raised every protective instinct I possessed. "Natalie, thank you for the message," I said pointedly. "Please tell Luna Catherine I'll review those reports shortly." She hesitated, her eyes still locked with Damien's, before nodding and departing. I turned back to our prisoner, now viewing him through an entirely new lens. "You saved Natalie?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. 2 years ago, he confirmed. "I was scouting Silver Ridge when I saw her take on a group of rogues. She killed 5 before they managed to wound her and knock her into the rapids. I pulled her out, made sure she was breathing, then left before your patrols arrived." This new information complicated matters significantly. If Damien was telling the truth about saving Natalie's life, what did that mean about his current motivations? "Let's continue this discussion more comfortably," I decided. "Hunter, move Mr. Morrison to the secure guest quarters. Full guard detail, but see that his wounds are properly treated." Hunter looked surprised but nodded. "Consider this a provisional trust," I told Damien. "If your information proves accurate, we'll discuss your future status. If not..." I left the threat unspoken. As Damien was escorted out, I remained in the interrogation room, processing this unexpected development. The threat to pregnant mates of powerful alphas was alarming enough, but the connection between Damien and Natalie added a personal dimension I hadn't anticipated. Whatever game Darian Morrison was playing, I needed to uncover his true motives quickly. With Scarlet and our unborn pup potentially targeted, I couldn't afford any missteps. Natalie's POV. My hands wouldn't stop trembling as I made my way back to my quarters. Seeing that rogue wolf, Darian Morrison, had shaken me more than I cared to admit. The Silver Ridge conflict happened 2 years ago when I was patrolling our eastern borders alone. I'd unexpectedly encountered a group of rogue wolves attempting to enter our territory. The fight had been brutal. I'd managed to take down 5 of them before sustaining serious injuries myself. The last thing I remembered was being knocked into the raging river, the icy water filling my lungs as darkness closed in. Then, vague impressions, strong arms pulling me from the water, gentle pressure on my chest forcing the water out, a deep voice murmuring, "Breathe, she-wolf, just breathe." I'd never known who saved me. By the time our pack patrols found me on the riverbank, my mysterious rescuer had vanished. And now, to discover it was Darian Morrison, a member of the family exiled from our pack for betrayal, felt impossible to process. "Natalie? Are you all right?" I startled, looking up to find Scarlet watching me with concern. I hadn't even noticed entering the family wing of the pack house. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. Scarlet tilted her head, not buying it for a second. "You're pale as moonlight, and your hands are shaking. What happened?" The concern in her eyes broke through my defenses. Scarlet had always been more sister than cousin to me, especially in the years after her adoption into our pack. "Can we talk privately?" I asked. She nodded, leading me to her sitting room and closing the door firmly behind us. The space smelled comfortingly of her, herbal remedies mixed with the faint sweetness that had developed since her pregnancy. "Do you remember the Silver Ridge incident?" I began, sinking onto the plush sofa. "When you were attacked by rogues? Of course, Roman was furious you'd gone patrolling alone." I smiled faintly at the memory of my sister's overprotective lecture. "I never knew who pulled me from the river that day. Everyone assumed I'd managed to drag myself to shore somehow." Understanding dawned in Scarlet's eyes. "You've discovered who it was." "Darian Morrison," I confirmed, the name still difficult to say. "He's here in the pack house. Roman is interrogating him about some threat to the Eastern Territories." "Damian?" Scarlet's expression darkened at the mention of the wolf who had threatened her years ago. "Are you sure it's him?" "He knew details no one else could know," I replied, remembering the intensity in his amber eyes as he'd looked at me. And I recognized him, somehow. Not his face, but something about his presence felt familiar. Scarlet looked troubled. "What does Roman think about this?" "I'm not sure. I left as soon as I could." She studied me for a moment. "You seem shaken by this. Is it just the surprise, or is there something more?" I hesitated, uncertain how to articulate the confusion churning inside me. I never expected to see him again. There's something unsettling about the way he looked at me, like he knew me, really knew me, even though we've barely met. Scarlett reached for my hand. Be careful, Natalie. Rogue wolves often have complicated loyalties. Even if he did save you once, that doesn't mean his intentions are pure now. I know, I agreed, squeezing her fingers gratefully. I just can't stop wondering why he did it. Why would an exiled wolf from a family that hates ours risk himself to save me? Perhaps that's the question you should ask him, Scarlett suggested. But not alone. Make sure Roman or Hunter is with you if you decide to speak with him. I nodded, though part of me was already contemplating how I might arrange a private conversation with the mysterious rogue who had once saved my life. Something about his unexpected appearance and the intensity of his focus on me suggested there was much more to this story than a simple rescue. I'll be careful, I promised, even as I wondered what secrets Darian Morrison might be hiding and why the memory of his amber gaze left me feeling so strangely unsettled. Chapter 287, Emma's Secret. I crept silently through the darkened corridors of the Thorn Pack house, my footsteps deliberately light against the polished floors. Roman had tasked me with keeping an eye on Emma Chase, and after 3 nights of nothing suspicious, tonight was finally proving interesting. Just minutes ago, I'd watched Emma's bedroom door ease open, followed by her shadowy figure slipping out and heading toward the gardens. My wolf instincts were immediately on alert. No innocent guest sneaks out at 2 a.m. The night air carried a slight chill as I followed her at a safe distance. Emma moved with unusual purpose, constantly checking over her shoulder, but never quite detecting my presence. I'd been trained by the best in the Thorn Pack. No one caught me when I didn't want to be caught. She finally stopped near the eastern wall of the garden, partially concealed by a cluster of moon willows. I circled around, using the dense foliage to mask my approach, until I was close enough to hear her whispered conversation. Emma pulled out her phone, dialing quickly. Her hands trembled slightly in the moonlight as she waited for the other party to answer. "Mom?" Her voice was barely audible. "It's me." I froze, straining to hear. Emma's mother? I thought she'd mentioned her mother was missing. "I can't keep doing this," Emma continued, obvious distress in her tone. "These people have been nothing but kind to me. They trust me." My suspicions flared. What exactly was Emma being asked to do that conflicted with our trust? There was a long pause as Emma listened to the person on the other end of the call. Her shoulders slumped. "No," she finally said, her voice stronger now. "No, I won't betray Scarlett, not even for you, Mother." My blood ran cold. Betrayal? Scarlett, I'd heard enough. Emma ended the call, slipping the phone back into her pocket. She took a deep breath, looked around once more, and turned to head back to the house. That's when I stepped directly into her path. "Going somewhere?" I asked coldly. Emma gasped, stumbling backward. Her face, illuminated by the moonlight, drained of all color. "Natalie, I needed some fresh air." "Fresh air doesn't usually require secret phone calls about betraying my cousin," I replied, crossing my arms. "Who were you talking to, and what exactly are you being asked to betray Scarlett for?" Emma's eyes darted from side to side, searching frantically for an escape route. Without warning, she bolted to my left, trying to dash past me toward the house. I was faster. I cut her off effortlessly, blocking her path. "You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself," I said, allowing a hint of my wolf to surface in my eyes. "Start talking, Emma. Now." Emma's face crumpled, and to my surprise, she burst into tears. Not the calculated tears of a manipulator, but the ragged, desperate sobs of someone at their breaking point. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she choked out. "I swear, I never would have let anything happen to Scarlett." I softened my tone slightly, though I remained on high alert. "Then tell me what's going on. Who was that on the phone?" Emma slid down against the garden wall, hugging her knees to her chest. For a moment, she looked unbearably young and frightened. "It was my mother," she admitted, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "She's in hiding. Has been for weeks now." I remained standing, maintaining my position between Emma and any potential escape route. "Hiding from what?" Emma took a shuddering breath. "From my father's enemies, and sometimes from my father himself." Her words made little sense to me. According to what Scarlett had told me, Emma was from a respectable healer bloodline in the Northern Territories. Your father? Isn't he from a Northern Pack? Emma laughed bitterly. That's what everyone believes. What my mother let everyone believe. She looked up at me, her eyes shining with tears in the moonlight. My father is Miguel Rivera. He's the leader of one of the most powerful human mafia organizations in the northern region. I couldn't hide my shock. Human? You're half human? Emma nodded miserably. A hybrid. My mother is Elena Chase, a pure-blooded wolf from the Northern Territories. She was kidnapped by my father during a territorial dispute with a rival pack. My mind raced, trying to process this revelation. Human-wolf hybrids were incredibly rare, and typically occurred only when true mates were involved. Your mother and father. They were true mates? I asked, piecing it together. Emma nodded. Against all odds, she was a powerful alpha she-wolf. He was a dangerous human crime lord. They fell in love, and then I happened. I slowly lowered myself to sit across from her, keeping a cautious distance but no longer believing she would run. If they were true mates, why did your mother leave? Why keep it secret? Emma's gaze dropped to her hands. For my safety. My father has enemies everywhere, rival organizations that wouldn't hesitate to use his half-wolf daughter as leverage. My mother told him she needed to return to her pack for a while, but never told him she was pregnant. She raised me completely in the wolf world, kept me hidden. The pieces were starting to fit together. But now he knows about you. 4 months ago, he somehow discovered I existed. He's been trying to make contact, to connect with the daughter he never knew he had. Emma's voice broke. My mother went into hiding as soon as she realized he'd found out about me. She's terrified his enemies will use me to get to him. I thought back to the phone call I'd overheard. What did she ask you to do that would betray Scarlet? Emma's shoulders slumped with shame. She wanted information about the Thorn Pack's security protocols. She thought if she knew the weaknesses, she could keep us both safer somehow. That makes no sense, I said bluntly. I know, Emma admitted. I think she's not thinking clearly anymore. She's been running for so long, paranoid that my father's rivals will find her. The call tonight was her warning me that they believe I know her location. And do you? I asked. Emma shook her head. No, she never tells me where she is. But these people, my father's enemies, they don't believe that. They've been watching me for weeks, even before I came to the European territories. Something clicked in my mind. Is that why your mother sent you to Eric Blackwood's villa? For protection? Yes, Emma whispered. She knows Eric's reputation as a weapons dealer. She thought I'd be safer there than in the Northern Territories where my father's influence is strongest. I considered everything she'd told me. If true, it explained her jumpy behavior, her constant anxiety, her odd reactions to security questions. It wasn't guilt I'd been sensing. It was fear. Emma, I said gently, you realize I have to tell Roman about this. Her eyes widened with panic. Please, no. If this gets out, if people know what I am. What you are is Scarlet's friend, I interrupted firmly. And right now, you're bringing danger to her doorstep without giving her the chance to protect herself. She'll hate me for lying, Emma whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I shook my head. Scarlet doesn't hate easily, but she deserves the truth. Emma wiped her tears again, considering my words. You're right, she finally conceded. I've been so terrified of losing the only true friend I've ever had that I've put her at risk. That makes me no better than those I'm running from. I stood and offered her my hand. Come on. We need to tell Roman and Scarlet everything tonight. Emma took my hand with obvious reluctance, letting me pull her to her feet. She looked utterly defeated, a far cry from the frightened but determined she-wolf I'd first met. What if they throw me out? She asked, her voice small. I have nowhere else to go. I felt a surprising surge of sympathy. Despite her deception, Emma was clearly caught between impossible choices. The Thorn Pack protects its own, I told her. And anyone Scarlet considers a friend is practically pack already. But we can't help you if we don't know what we're up against. As we walked back toward the main house, Emma's shoulders gradually straightened. Thank you, she said quietly, for not immediately assuming the worst. Don't thank me yet, I warned her. Roman can be intense when it comes to Scarlet's safety, but I'll vouch for you if I believe you're telling the truth. Emma nodded, taking a deep breath as we approached the main entrance. I just want this all to be over. I never asked to be caught between two worlds like this. We'll figure this out, I promised, but no more secrets, Emma. Not if you want our help. Emma looked at me, her eyes still red from crying but with new determination. No more secrets, she agreed. I'm terrified of losing my only true friend. Chapter 288, The Mating Ceremony Preparations. The Thorn Pack house buzzed with activity as preparations for our mating ceremony intensified. Though Roman and I were already mated in the most fundamental way, our bond complete and our pup growing within me, pack traditions demanded a formal ceremony to present us to allied packs. Hold still, dear, the elderly beta seamstress muttered, pins clutched between her lips as she adjusted the hem of my ceremonial robes. I tried not to fidget, but my mind kept wandering. Servants rushed past the open door carrying elaborate flower arrangements and ancient ritual objects retrieved from the pack vaults. The scope of the preparations was overwhelming. Is all this really necessary? I asked, wincing as a pin pricked my ankle. Luna Catherine smiled from where she supervised nearby. The mating of an alpha, especially one of Roman standing, is a significant political event. The ceremony reaffirms alliances and demonstrates the strength of the Thorn Pack. I sighed. It feels like we're putting on a show. In some ways we are, Luna Catherine admitted, but the ritual itself holds real meaning. It's been performed in our pack for generations. The seamstress finished pinning the hem and stepped back to assess her work. There, what do you think? I turned to the mirror, momentarily stunned by my reflection. The ceremonial robes were breathtaking, ivory silk embroidered with silver thread in the pattern of running wolves. The cut was traditional but had been subtly modified to accommodate my still modest pregnancy. It's beautiful, I admitted softly. Luna Catherine nodded with approval. You look every bit the alpha's mate. The seamstress gathered her supplies. I'll have the final adjustments done by tomorrow, Luna Catherine. After she left, Luna Catherine approached me, her expression concerned. Something's troubling you, Scarlet. I can see it in your eyes. I forced a smile. Just nervous about the ceremony, I suppose. She wasn't fooled. You've never been one to worry about public appearances. There's something more. Before I could respond, the pack steward appeared in the doorway. Luna Catherine, the Silver Valley Alpha's representative, has arrived with questions about the seating arrangements. Luna Catherine sighed. I'll be right there. She squeezed my hand. We'll talk later, dear. Left alone, I carefully removed the ceremonial robes and changed back into my regular clothes. My hand rested briefly on my stomach, still flat but holding the precious secret of our pup. Everything was finally falling into place. I was home, safe with Roman, carrying our child. So why couldn't I shake this feeling of impending doom? Later that afternoon, I found myself in Luna Catherine's private chambers. The space was exactly as I remembered from childhood, warm, elegant, and infused with her calming energy. Scrolls and diagrams of the ceremony layout covered her desk. The Eastern Territory's allied packs will be seated here, Luna Catherine explained, pointing to the diagram. Northern allies here, though there will be fewer than originally anticipated given recent events. I nodded, only half listening as she detailed the complex protocol for the various territorial representatives. Luna Catherine finally set down her pen and looked at me directly. Scarlet, you haven't heard a word I've said for the past 5 minutes. Please tell me what's troubling you. The gentle concern in her voice broke through my defenses. I sank into the chair opposite her desk, suddenly exhausted. Every time happiness seems within reach, something terrible happens, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm afraid to believe this can last. Luna Catherine's eyes softened. She rose and came around the desk, taking the chair next to mine. Oh, my dear girl, she said, taking my hands in hers. Is that what's been worrying you? I nodded, embarrassed by the tears that threatened. It feels like tempting fate to celebrate like this, to plan so openly for a future that could still be taken away. Luna Catherine was silent for a moment, her thumb gently stroking the back of my hand. Did I ever tell you about the early days of my mating with Liam? I shook my head. Luna Catherine and my adoptive father had always seemed like the perfect pair, their love affair legendary within the pack. I'd never considered that they might have faced challenges. We were very young, she began, her eyes distant with memory. Liam had just become alpha after his father's sudden death. Many thought him too inexperienced, too untested. This was already news to me. I always thought Grandpa Thorn stepped down willingly. Luna Catherine smiled sadly. That's the story we allowed to circulate. In truth, he was assassinated by a rival pack seeking to exploit a leadership transition. My eyes widened. What happened? Liam became alpha during a blood moon, a difficult transition at the best of times. Within weeks of our mating, 3 neighboring packs launched coordinated attacks on our borders. I listened, spellbound, as Luna Catherine described those early months. The constant threats, the sleepless nights. Liam's struggle to earn the respect of older pack members. It was a far cry from the confident, universally admired Alpha Wad had known. And there were personal struggles too, she continued softly. For years we couldn't conceive. Pack healers began to whisper that I was barren, that Liam should set me aside for a more fertile mate. He would never, I protested, unable to imagine my adoptive father being so cruel. Of course not, Luna Catherine agreed. But the pressure was immense. An alpha without an heir is vulnerable, both politically and literally, since rivals see opportunity in an uncertain succession. She squeezed my hands. When I finally became pregnant with Roman, after 7 years of trying, I was terrified every single day that something would go wrong. I barely left our quarters for 9 months, convinced that any activity might harm our miracle. I'd never known any of this. The image I'd carried of their perfect union shattered, replaced by something more complex, and ultimately, more real. What changed? I asked. How did you stop being afraid? Luna Catherine smiled. I didn't, not completely. Fear is natural when you love deeply. But Liam helped me understand that living in fear isn't really living at all. We can't control what challenges come our way. We can only face them together. Her words resonated deeply. Wasn't that exactly what Roman and I had already proven we could do? Your bond with Roman has already withstood so much, Luna Catherine continued, echoing my thoughts. Separation, betrayal, danger. These tests have only strengthened what's between you. The ceremony doesn't create that strength. It simply celebrates what already exists. I felt something tight inside me begin to loosen. I never knew you and Alpha Liam struggled so much. Every love story worth telling has its challenges, Luna Catherine said wisely. Perfect unions don't exist, Scarlet, but deep, enduring love, the kind that grows stronger through adversity, that's real. That's what you and Roman have. Her words washed over me like a healing balm. The anxieties that had plagued me for weeks didn't vanish completely, but they receded enough for me to breathe more easily. Thank you, I whispered, suddenly overcome with gratitude for this remarkable woman who had taken me in as her own. Luna Catherine opened her arms, and I moved into her embrace, without hesitation, snuggling against her as I had done as a little girl. Her familiar scent enveloped me, bringing back memories of countless moments when she had comforted me after nightmares or celebrated my achievements. As I rested in her arms, my thoughts turned darkly to Sarah Winter. When I had returned to the Northern Territories, I had secretly harbored hope for an emotional connection with my birth mother. Despite everything, some childish part of me had longed for her approval, her affection. That hope had been thoroughly crushed. Sarah had never shown me the unconditional love that Luna Catherine had given freely since the day I arrived at the Thorn Pack compound. Even after learning I was her biological daughter, Sarah had continued to favor Grace, the cuckoo in her nest, who had manipulated and betrayed her for years. I pulled back slightly to look at Luna Catherine's face, struck again by how fortunate I had been. Despite the trauma of my early years, despite the recent turbulence with the Winter Pack, I had ended up back in the Thorn Pack, back with the woman who had truly been a mother to me. I had been a lucky she-wolf indeed. Chapter 289, The Truth About Emma. I was reviewing pack documents in Roman's private study when the door opened. Natalie appeared with Emma, whose face was pale and tear-streaked. Immediately, I sensed something was wrong. "Scarlet, we need to talk," Natalie said, her tone unusually serious. I set aside the territory border reports I'd been reading. "What's happened?" Emma stepped forward, wringing her hands nervously. "Scarlet, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what?" I asked, confused by her distress, Natalie guided Emma to a chair opposite me. Emma has something important to tell you, something she should have shared long ago. Emma's eyes darted between us, looking like a cornered animal. I never meant to put anyone in danger. You have to believe that. My wolf stirred uneasily beneath my skin. Emma, just tell me what's going on. She took a deep, shuddering breath. It's about who I am, where I come from. I haven't been entirely honest with you. I waited, watching my friend struggle to find words. The Emma I knew had always been straightforward, if occasionally nervous. This level of anxiety was new. My mother is Elena Chase, from the Northern Pack Healers, as you know, she began. But my father, he's not who everyone thinks. Who is he? I asked softly. Emma's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Miguel Rivera. The name hung in the air between us. Even I recognized it. Miguel Rivera controlled one of the largest human criminal organizations in the Northern Territories. His network spanned both human and supernatural worlds, dealing in everything from weapons to territory disputes. Miguel Rivera is human, I said slowly, piecing together what this meant. Emma nodded miserably. I'm half human, a hybrid. I sat back in my chair, truly shocked. Human-wolf hybrids were incredibly rare. Most matings between humans and wolves were unsuccessful due to biological incompatibilities. Those that did produce offspring often resulted in children with severe health issues. How is that possible? I asked. My mother was kidnapped during a territory dispute with a rival pack, Emma explained. My father's men had been hired to help that pack. When he saw my mother, something happened between them. True mates, Natalie interjected. It's the only explanation. Emma nodded. That's what my mother believed. Despite being kidnapped, she developed real feelings for him. It was all very complicated. I could imagine a powerful alpha she-wolf finding her true mate in a human crime lord. The pack would never have accepted it. When she discovered she was pregnant, she escaped back to her pack, Emma continued. She never told my father about me. She was afraid, not just of him, but of what his enemies might do if they discovered he had a half-wolf child. I studied my friend's face, seeing now the subtle differences I'd never noticed before. Emma had always seemed slightly unlike other wolves, her scent a touch different, her reflexes occasionally a beat slower. Those tiny discrepancies suddenly made sense. She raised me completely in the wolf world, Emma said. But she also made sure I understood my human heritage. Thankfully, I transformed normally at 18 like any full-blooded wolf. Your mother arranged for you to train with Dr. Bennett, I recalled. That's how we met. Emma nodded. She wanted me to have a normal wolf life, with wolf friends and a wolf profession. She was so careful for so many years. What changed? I asked. Emma's hands twisted in her lap. 4 months ago, my father saw me by chance during a meeting with some Northern Territory business owners. I look a lot like him, same eyes, same facial structure. He recognized the resemblance immediately and started asking questions. I remembered when Emma had suddenly become withdrawn around that time. She'd claimed it was just stress from her healing studies. He discovered who I was and tried to contact my mother, Emma continued. He wanted to meet me, to acknowledge me as his daughter. And your mother ran, Natalie concluded. Emma nodded. She disappeared completely. She was terrified that my father's rivals would use me to get to him, or worse, to her. I thought of the recent phone call Natalie had overheard. These rivals think you know where your mother is hiding. Yes, Emma admitted. They've been watching me, following me. That's part of why my mother arranged for me to go to the European territories, to Eric's villa. She thought I'd be safer there, away from my father's strongest influence in the north. My mind was racing, connecting dots I'd previously missed. The accidents at Eric's, were they really accidents? Emma looked down, ashamed. Most were. I really am that clumsy when I'm nervous. But the sudden nosebleeds, those happened whenever I spotted someone watching the villa. My body reacts badly to extreme stress. It's a hybrid trait. The study door opened again, and Roman entered. His expression was grave as he took in our small gathering. Hunter informed me there was an important discussion happening, he said, moving to stand beside my chair. His hand rested protectively on my shoulder. Natalie quickly brought him up to speed on Emma's revelations. Roman's face remained impassive, but I felt his grip tighten slightly on my shoulder. These human enemies, he said when Natalie finished. You believe they've infiltrated wolf packs? Emma nodded miserably. They have contacts everywhere. Human organizations with knowledge of our kind are rare but extremely dangerous. They know our weaknesses, our politics. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked, the question that had been burning in my mind. We've been friends for years, Emma. Did you not trust me? Emma's eyes filled with fresh tears. I was terrified of losing you. Wolf-human hybrids are looked down upon in most packs. Add to that my father's criminal connections. She shook her head. I convinced myself it was safer for everyone if I kept the truth hidden. Safer? Roman's voice carried a hint of danger. You brought unknown threats to my mate's doorstep without warning us. Emma flinched. I know, it was selfish and wrong. I've never had a real friend before Scarlet. Everyone in my mother's pack kept their distance, as if they sensed something different about me. When Scarlet accepted me without question, her voice broke. I couldn't bear to lose that. I reached across the desk and took her trembling hand. You wouldn't have lost me. There's more, Emma said, gathering her courage. My mother's enemies. They've infiltrated several pack territories, including possibly the Thorn Pack. Roman straightened. Explain. They're humans who know about wolves, but they hire wolf spies. Emma explained. They use money, blackmail, whatever works. I recognized one of the delivery men who came to the pack house yesterday. He used to work for one of my father's rivals. You're certain? Roman asked sharply. Emma nodded. He has a distinctive scar across his left wrist. I've seen him before at gatherings my mother took me to. Roman immediately moved to the door, calling for Hunter. After giving brief instructions, he returned to us. The delivery staff will be investigated, he said. In the meantime, security protocols will be tightened. I looked at Emma, seeing the fear and shame etched into her features. Despite the shock of her revelations, I couldn't find anger within me. Emma had kept secrets, yes, but out of fear for her life and our friendship. Roman, I said quietly, Emma needs our protection. He studied my face for a long moment before nodding. She'll remain here under guard. Hunter will arrange for additional screening of all pack members and staff. Emma's shoulders slumped with relief. Thank you. I'm so sorry for bringing this danger to your door. Emma, I said firmly, you are my friend. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Her tear-filled eyes met mine, searching for any hint of deception or rejection. Finding none, she whispered, I was so afraid you'd hate me. For being half-human? For having a complicated family? I shook my head. After everything I've been through with my own birth family, did you really think I would judge you for yours? A small, tentative smile touched her lips. I should have known better. Roman's phone buzzed, drawing his attention. After reading the message, his expression darkened. Hunter has detained the delivery man Emma identified. Initial questioning confirms he was gathering information on pack movements. The ceremony, I realized with a chill. If they know about the mating ceremony with all the allied packs gathered in one place. Roman nodded grimly. It could be an opportunity for them. We'll need to revise security measures immediately. Emma looked devastated. This is all because of me. No, I corrected her. This is because of people who would use you and your mother as pawns. None of this is your fault, Emma. Natalie stood. Roman, I should brief the security team on what we know about these human organizations. Roman agreed, and Natalie left quickly. I turned back to Emma, who still looked miserable. Why were you trying to leave the gardens last night? I asked, remembering what Natalie had told me. My mother called, Emma admitted. She wanted information about the Thorn Pack's security protocols. She claimed it was for our protection, but I refused. That's when Natalie caught me. I squeezed her hand. You did the right thing. I won't betray you, Emma said firmly. Not even for my mother. She's not thinking clearly anymore. She's been running for so long that's paranoid about my father and his rivals finding her. Roman returned to my side. Emma, we'll need everything you know about these human organizations. Their methods, their contacts within wolf packs, anything that might help us identify their operatives. Emma nodded eagerly, clearly relieved to have something constructive to do. Of course, anything you need. As Roman called for a scribe to record Emma's information, I thought about how complicated the world truly was. Emma had hidden her heritage out of fear of rejection, judgment, and danger. I couldn't blame her for that. "Emma," I said softly, "thank you for telling us the truth now. It can't have been easy." She gave me a grateful look. "I should have trusted you sooner. I was just so afraid of losing your friendship and being ostracized by the wolf community for my human criminal connections." I nodded, understanding her fear all too well. "We'll figure this out together. You've been carrying this burden alone for too long." Chapter 290. Damian's Obsession, Natalie's POV. I hurried down the corridor toward the healing wing. 3 days since we detained Darian Morrison, and with each passing day he grew bolder in his attempts to interact with me. I turned the corner and froze. Damian stood casually leaning against the wall, waiting for me. "Good morning, Natalie," he said, his amber eyes lighting up. I kept my face blank. "You're supposed to be in your quarters with guards present." He shrugged. "The healer said walking would help my recovery. Your guards are right there." He nodded toward 2 betas standing nearby. "Then walk elsewhere," I said, trying to pass him. Damian stepped into my path. "Don't you find it strange? The connection between us?" "There is no connection," I replied coldly. "I disagree." His voice dropped lower. "I pulled you from those waters 2 years ago for a reason. Some might call it fate. My wolf bristled beneath my skin. I call it coincidence. Move." Instead, he leaned closer. "In all my years as a rogue, I've never felt compelled to save anyone before. Something drew me specifically to you." "Thank you for saving my life," I said sharply. "That doesn't entitle you to anything now." "Not entitlement," he corrected, "but recognition. Can't you feel it when we're near each other?" "What I feel is annoyance. Excuse me." I pushed past him, feeling his eyes on my back. That afternoon, I was reviewing security protocols in the library when Damian entered. "This is becoming harassment," I said without looking up. "I brought you tea," Damian said, placing a cup on the table. "The healer said you skip meals when working." I finally looked at him. "Why are you following me, watching me, appearing wherever I am?" Damian sat uninvited. "Because we're meant to know each other. What are the odds that of all wolves it was you I saved?" "Quite high," I countered. "I was patrolling that border," he smiled. "And why were you patrolling alone that day? Against protocol? Against your brother's orders?" I stiffened. He was right. I shouldn't have been there alone. "That doesn't mean we have some mystical connection," I said. "Doesn't it?" He leaned forward. "You're curious too. I can see it." "You're delusional," I stated, gathering my papers. Scarlett appeared at the library entrance, her face hardening when she saw Damian. "Natalie, Luna Catherine is looking for you," she said, eyes fixed on Damian. I rose quickly. Damian stood as well, ever the gentleman despite being a detained rogue. Scarlett waited until I reached her before addressing him. "Mr. Morrison, Roman made it clear you were to remain in designated areas unless escorted." "My apologies," he replied smoothly. "I was merely bringing Natalie tea." Scarlett's eyes narrowed. "Natalie has made it clear she doesn't welcome your attention. Respect her boundaries before my mate reconsiders your accommodations." The threat wasn't lost on Damian, but he merely nodded. As we left, his gaze followed us down the corridor. "Are you all right?" Scarlett asked once we were alone. "Just annoyed. He's everywhere." Scarlett frowned. "Roman should know about this. His information may be valuable, but not at the expense of making you uncomfortable." "I can handle myself," I said quickly. "Not at any cost," Scarlett insisted, "and not if it means allowing him to harass you." That evening, I slipped out to the gardens for some peace. The scent of jasmine filled the air as I walked the stone paths. Suddenly, perimeter alarms blared to life. Red lights flashed along the garden walls. I spotted 3 shadows scaling the eastern wall with shocking speed. Pack protocol said I should run toward safety, but something held me in place. One shadow dropped inside our territory and moved directly toward me. I backed away, reaching for my silver dagger. The intruder moved faster than expected. Before I could draw my weapon, he was upon me. A wolf I didn't recognize, eyes glowing with malice. "Found you," he growled, lunging with extended claws. I dodged, but his claws caught my arm, tearing through fabric and skin. Pain shot through me as I stumbled back. Before the attacker could strike again, Damian appeared from nowhere, throwing himself between us with terrifying ferocity. The fight was brutal but brief. Damian moved with lethal precision, his attacks targeting vulnerable points. Within seconds, my attacker lay unconscious at his feet. "Are you hurt?" Damian asked, scanning my body for injuries. I clutched my bleeding arm. "How did you know? How were you here?" Before he could answer, pack guards surrounded us with weapons drawn. Damian raised his hands, stepping away from the fallen attacker. "She's injured," he told them calmly. As medics treated my wound, I couldn't stop staring at Damian. He'd appeared too quickly, too perfectly timed. It was almost as if he'd known I would be attacked. Later, after security had detained the intruders and healers had treated my arm, I sat in my quarters, replaying the attack. The way Damian had appeared precisely when I needed help seemed impossible unless he'd been watching me. But if he'd been watching, why hadn't the guards seen him? And the ferocity with which he'd fought, it went beyond simple protection. He had fought like someone defending their most precious possession. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Roman stood at my door, looking grim. "Are you all right?" he asked, eyeing my bandage. "I'm fine. Just a scratch." He nodded. "I've assigned 2 personal guards to you until we understand what happened tonight." "Do you think Damian arranged it?" I asked. Roman's jaw tightened. "It's convenient that he was there, isn't it? But why? What would he gain?" "Your trust, your gratitude, a foot in the door." Roman's voice hardened. "Don't be fooled by heroics. They could easily be staged." I nodded, though a small part of me wondered if we were being too harsh. The attack had felt very real, and Damian's reaction seemed genuinely protective. Roman's pee. I watched my sister's face carefully, noting her conflict. Darian Morrison was playing a dangerous game, and I wouldn't allow Natalie to become a pawn in it. 3 intruders breaching our defenses exactly where you happen to be walking alone? I said. "The timing is suspicious. But why arrange an attack that could have killed me?" she asked. "Because he never intended for you to be harmed," I explained. "He was there to save you before any real damage could be done." Natalie frowned. "He fought like nothing I've ever seen, almost feral." That didn't surprise me. Rogues developed vicious fighting styles out of necessity. What concerned me was Damian's fixation on my sister. "Stay away from him," I instructed. "The additional guards will ensure he can't approach you without witnesses." After leaving Natalie, I went to Damian's quarters. Despite the late hour, he was awake, sitting calmly when I entered. "I assume you're here about the attack," he said. "Convenient timing," I responded coldly. To my surprise, Damian didn't protest. "Believe what you want. I know how it looks." "And how does it look?" "Like I orchestrated an attack to play the hero," he replied matter-of-factly. But those wolves were real threats. Your security already identified them as part of the coalition I warned you about." He was right about that. The intruders belonged to a group we'd been tracking based on his intelligence. "That doesn't explain why you were in the gardens," I pointed out. Damian's expression shifted. "I knew she was there. I felt it." "What does that mean?" "Some things are written in blood rather than choice," he said slowly. "Natalie and I share something rare." I stiffened. "My sister is not your concern." "But she is," he insisted calmly. "Has been since I pulled her from that river. I didn't understand it then, but I do now." "Understand what?" I demanded. Damian looked directly into my eyes. "Some things are written in blood rather than choice." Chapter 291, Grace's Last Stand. The early morning briefing brought unwelcome news. Hunter's typically composed face showed rare concern as he delivered his report. "Alpha, Grace Winter has disappeared from the Northern Territories Healing Center." I set down my coffee cup, instantly alert. "When?" "Sometime during the night. Despite her critical condition, she managed to evade the minimal security they had in place." I wasn't entirely surprised. The Winter Pack's resources had dwindled to almost nothing, leaving them unable to maintain proper security even for someone as dangerous as Grace. "Her condition?" I asked. Hunter shook his head grimly. "Terminal. According to our sources, the silver poisoning has spread throughout her system. Healers gave her weeks at most. That made her disappearance even more concerning. A dying wolf with nothing to lose was perhaps the most dangerous kind." "She'll come here," I said, already certain of her destination. "She'll try to reach Scarlet." "I've already doubled the perimeter guards," Hunter assured me, "and I've alerted our allied packs to be on watch." I moved to the window, looking out at the territory that housed my mate and unborn child. My wolf bristled beneath my skin, urging me to hunt down the threat before it could reach what was mine. "Triple the security around Scarlet," I ordered. "Full escort protocol whenever she leaves the main house. And I want hourly reports from our border patrols." Hunter nodded, already typing instructions into his pack tablet. "Should we inform Scarlet?" I considered this carefully. Scarlet was remarkably strong, but her pregnancy made her more vulnerable, both physically and emotionally. Still, keeping her in the dark would be both disrespectful and potentially dangerous. "I'll tell her myself," I decided. "Coordinate with our allies in the neutral zones. If Grace is traveling through their territories, someone must have seen her." After Hunter left, I found Scarlet in our private garden, reviewing ceremony preparations with Luna Catherine. The sight of her bathed in morning sunlight, her hand occasionally drifting to rest on her still flat stomach, filled me with fierce protectiveness. Both women looked up as I approached. Luna Catherine, perceptive as always, immediately sensed something was wrong. "I'll check on the ceremonial offerings," she said tactfully, gathering her notes and giving us privacy. Scarlet watched my face closely as I sat beside her. "What's happened?" "Grace Winter has disappeared from her healing center," I told her directly. "Given her history, we believe she may attempt to reach you." To my relief, Scarlet remained calm, though I detected the slight acceleration of her heartbeat. "Her condition? Terminal. The silver poisoning has progressed significantly." Scarlet's expression hardened. "She's coming to make one last attempt, then. One final strike before she dies." The cool assessment in her voice reminded me that my mate was not just any she-wolf. She had survived multiple attempts on her life and emerged stronger each time. "I've increased security throughout the territory," I assured her. "She won't get anywhere near you." Scarlet took my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. "I'm not afraid of Grace anymore, Roman. Let her come. We'll be ready." I leaned forward, resting my forehead against hers. "All the same, please stay within the secure areas until she's found. For my sanity, if nothing else." She smiled slightly at that. "For your sanity, then." Over the next 3 days, tension gripped the pack house as we waited for news. Despite coordinated searches throughout the territories, Grace remained elusive, which suggested she had help. On the third night, my phone rang just after midnight. Hunter's voice came through, tense but controlled. "We've got her, Alpha. Border Patrol caught her trying to cross into our territory from the north." I was immediately alert, sitting up in bed. "Alone?" "No, she had assistance from a rogue wolf. Male, unknown identity. He's been detained as well." Scarlet stirred beside me. Roused by the conversation, I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Condition?" I asked Hunter. "Barely standing," he replied. "The silver poisoning is visible now. Her skin has a grayish cast to it. But she's conscious and demanding to speak with Scarlet. Claims she wants to apologize before she dies." I scoffed at that. "Bring her to the secure holding facility. I'll meet you there." After ending the call, I turned to Scarlet, who was now fully awake. "They've captured Grace trying to enter our territory," I explained. "She's asking to see you. Claims she wants to apologize." Scarlet's expression remained impassive. "After everything she's done, she expects me to believe that?" "You don't have to see her," I assured her. "No one would expect that of you." She was quiet for a moment, considering. "I don't want to see her, Roman. Not out of fear, but because she deserves nothing from me. Not even the satisfaction of delivering some final poisonous words face to face." I nodded, respecting her decision. "I'll handle it." 30 minutes later, I stood in the observation room of our secure holding facility. I'd have watching Grace Winter through one-way glass. Even expecting the worst, I was shocked by her appearance. The once beautiful wolf who had manipulated so many was barely recognizable. Her skin had a grayish pallor that spoke of advanced silver poisoning. Her platinum blonde hair hung in limp strands around her gaunt face. Only her eyes remained unchanged, cold, calculating, filled with malice. "Where is Scarlet?" she demanded as soon as I entered the room. "I need to see her." "That won't be happening," I replied calmly. "She has no desire to speak with you." Grace's expression twisted. "I'm dying. Surely even Scarlet can find mercy for a dying wolf. After your multiple attempts on her life? After you conspired with Lucas Gray?" I shook my head. "You've made your choices, Grace. Now you face the consequences alone." I just want to apologize, she insisted, her voice breaking, to make amends before I die. Please, Alpha Thorn. Just 5 minutes with her. I studied her carefully. There was something off about her performance, something calculated behind the desperation. My mate's message is clear, I said. She has nothing to say to the woman who tried to kill her multiple times and betrayed those who loved her. The change was immediate and chilling. Grace's facade of repentance dropped away like a discarded mask. Her eyes hardened, her lips curling into a snarl. Then she'll die regretting that decision, she spat, all pretense gone. Tell your precious mate that I have one last plan to destroy her happiness before I die. One final gift that will ensure she never forgets me. The venom in her voice confirmed what I'd suspected. This had never been about apologies. Grace had come with malice in her heart, determined to cause harm until her final breath. Take her to holding cell 3, I instructed the guards. Full restraints, constant surveillance. As they moved to secure her, Grace called out, Do your worst, Alpha Thorn. It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing can save me, and nothing will save Scarlet from what's coming. I left without responding to her threats, but ordered additional security measures throughout the pack house. Grace Winter might be dying, but she remained dangerous. Perhaps more so now that she had nothing to lose. Hunter met me in the corridor. The rogue wolf isn't talking. Claims he was just hired to escort her, nothing more. Keep pressing him, I instructed, and I want Grace checked by our healers. I need to know exactly how much time she has left. Already arranged, Hunter assured me. And I've doubled the guards on her cell. I nodded, appreciative of his thoroughness. Good, she's planning something, Hunter. I could see it in her eyes. Several hours later, I was reviewing security footage in my office when the alarms blared through the compound. My phone rang immediately. Alpha, emergency in the holding cells, came the urgent voice of the guard captain. Cell 3, Grace Winter attacked her guard. I was already moving. How? She was restrained. She appeared to have a seizure. When Officer Madison entered to check on her, she attacked. The guard hesitated. Sir, she bit him repeatedly. Her saliva, it's contaminated with silver from her own poisoning. He's in critical condition. The ruthlessness of the tactic stunned me. Grace had weaponized her own dying body, using her silver-poisoned saliva to critically injure her guard. Lock down the entire compound, I ordered. Where is she now? Unknown, sir. She escaped into the main corridor before the backup team arrived. Cold dread settled in my stomach. Somehow, despite her terminal condition, Grace Winter had managed to escape her cell and was now loose in the pack house, the same building where my pregnant mate slept. Activate full lockdown protocol, I commanded. All available enforcers to search teams, and get me Hunter Stone immediately. By the time I reached the secure holding area, chaos had erupted. Pack medics were treating the injured guard, whose wounds leaked a sickly gray fluid, where Grace's silver-poisoned saliva had entered his bloodstream. The sight of it, a guard brought down by such a desperate and horrifying tactic, shocked even the hardened pack warriors present. Chapter 292, The Betrayal. Emma's POV. My phone buzzed, vibrating against the wooden nightstand next to my bed. I was half asleep, having tossed and turned all night since my confession to Scarlet and Roman. The weight of my secrets had been lifted, but new fears had taken their place. I fumbled for the device, squinting at the bright screen. The message was from an unknown number, but the code at the beginning told me exactly who it was from, one of my mother's most trusted informants. GW connected to Rivera enemies. Sold your movements for treatment dollars. All compromised. Warren S. My blood turned to ice. Grace Winter? The dying she-wolf from the Winter Pack? How could she be connected to my father's enemies? I jumped out of bed, not bothering to change from my sleep clothes. This couldn't wait. Scarlet needed to know immediately. The corridors of the Thorn Pack house were dimly lit at this early hour. I ran past surprised beta guards, ignoring their questions. All that mattered was reaching Scarlet before it was too late. When I reached Scarlet's private chambers, I didn't stop to knock. I burst through the door, startling the 2 guard wolves stationed inside. I need to see Scarlet, I gasped. It's an emergency. The guards moved with lightning speed. One pinned my arms behind my back while the other blocked my path, growling low in his throat. Stand down, the larger guard commanded. You don't enter the Alpha's mate's chambers unannounced. Please, I begged, struggling against his grip. It's about Grace Winter. Scarlett's in danger. Scarlett appeared from the inner bedroom, wrapped in a robe. Her emerald eyes widened at the sight of me, restrained by her guards. Let her go, she ordered immediately. She's my friend. The guards released me, but remained tense, watching my every move. Emma, what's happened? Scarlett asked, concern evident in her voice. I held up my phone, struggling to catch my breath. I just received a message from one of my mother's contacts. Grace Winter has been working with my father's enemies for months. Scarlett's expression hardened. Explain. She's been selling information about me, my movements, my connections, my everything, in exchange for money to pay for her silver poisoning treatment. I ran a hand through my tangled hair, the implications hitting me fully. That's how they've been tracking me so effectively. That's how they knew to look for me at Eric's villa and now here. Scarlett's face paled slightly. Are you certain? The source is reliable. My mother only uses him for critical intelligence. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Grace has been playing a long game, Scarlett. Even while dying, she found a way to hurt you through me. Suddenly, a piercing alarm blared throughout the pack house. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridor outside. One of the guards touched his earpiece, listening intently. Luna, Scarlett, there's been a security breach. Grace Winter has escaped from custody. She's somewhere within the compound. Scarlett's jaw tightened. Find Roman. Tell him what Emma's discovered. Before the guard could move, Roman himself appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of controlled fury. Scarlett, stay here. Grace has attacked a guard and escaped. She's using her silver-poisoned saliva as a weapon. His gaze shifted to me, taking in my disheveled appearance. What's happened? I quickly explained about Grace's connection to my father's enemies. Roman's expression grew darker with each word. Hunter, he called over his shoulder. The beta appeared instantly. Adjust the search parameters. Grace may be working with outside forces. Check all communications from her cell. Hunter nodded and disappeared. Roman turned back to Scarlett, who was already reaching for clothes. No, he said firmly. You stay here under guard. We don't know what else Grace has planned. Roman, I can defend myself, Scarlett protested. You know I'm not helpless. He moved to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. This isn't about your capabilities, it's about our pup. Please, until we know what we're dealing with, stay here. I could see the conflict in Scarlett's eyes, but she finally nodded, placing a hand protectively over her still flat stomach. Roman kissed her forehead before turning to the guards. No one enters or leaves without my direct order. Clear? Yes, Alpha, they responded in unison. With a last look at Scarlett, Roman swept from the room, already giving orders through his pack communication device. Through the windows, I could see pack members moving in coordinated patterns across the grounds, searching systematically for the escaped prisoner. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mother's informant. Not direct attack. GW arranged human operatives, infiltration during chaos. External threat. I gasped, the pieces suddenly clicking into place. Scarlett, this is a diversion. She moved to my side immediately. What do you mean? Grace's escape. It's not the real threat. She's created chaos to distract the pack while human operatives infiltrate from outside. I held up my phone, showing her the message. The pack is looking inward when they should be watching the perimeter. Scarlett immediately tried to contact Roman through their mate bond, her face tense with concentration. He's too focused on the search. The connection is muted. I moved toward the door. I have to tell him or Hunter. The guards blocked my path. Alpha's orders, no one leaves. But you don't understand, I pleaded. The real attack is coming from outside. While everyone's distracted looking for Grace, they're going to breach the perimeter. The guards exchanged glances but held firm. We can relay the message through channels, but you stay here. I watched in frustration as one guard spoke into his communication device, trying to pass along my warning. But I could tell from his expression that the message wasn't being prioritized in the midst of the ongoing crisis. Time was running out. I had to do something. My gaze landed on my healing kit, which I'd left in Scarlett's room the day before when showing her my special herbs for pregnancy comfort. An idea formed quickly. Scarlett, I whispered, I need a distraction. She assessed me for a moment, then nodded almost imperceptibly. I moved to my healing kit, quickly mixing 3 specific herbs. When combined, they would create a harmless but thick smoke, something I'd accidentally discovered during one of my early experiments. "Guards," Scarlet called, drawing their attention. "I'm feeling unwell. Could you request some water?" As they turned toward her, I dropped the mixed herbs into a small cup of water on the nearby table. The reaction was immediate. Dense white smoke billowed upward, filling the room within seconds. The guards shouted in alarm, momentarily disoriented. I slipped past them in the confusion, darting into the corridor. "Find Hunter Stone," I heard Scarlet call after me. "He'll be at the command center." I ran through the pack house, dodging searchers and security personnel. All around me, wolves were focused on finding Grace, looking in closets, checking empty rooms, securing hallways. No one was paying attention to the real threat. The command center was located in the eastern wing of the pack house, a fortified room where pack security was coordinated. I'd never been there before, but I followed the increasing concentration of guards and communication equipment. When I finally reached the area, I was stopped by another security checkpoint. "I need to see Hunter Stone. It's urgent," I gasped. "No access without clearance," the guard replied, flatly. "Please, Grace Winter's escape is a diversion. The real attack is coming from outside." Something in my desperate tone must have registered because the guard hesitated. Before he could decide, the door to the command center opened and Hunter Stone himself emerged. "Let her through," he ordered, recognizing me. I rushed forward. "Hunter, Grace's escape is a distraction. She's been working with my father's enemies for months. They're planning to breach the perimeter while everyone's focused on finding her." Hunter's eyes narrowed. "How do you know this?" I held up my phone, showing him the messages. "My mother's informant just warned me. Grace sold information to them in exchange for money to pay for her treatments. This whole escape is orchestrated to pull security inward while the real threat comes from outside." Hunter immediately turned to the security monitors, typing commands rapidly. The screens shifted to show the outer perimeter of the pack house grounds. "Eastern sector, enhanced surveillance," he ordered. As the cameras zoomed in, we both saw it, dark figures moving through the trees along the eastern boundary. At the same moment, sensors began flashing red on the security console. "Multiple perimeter breaches detected, eastern sector," announced an automated voice. Hunter slammed his hand on the alarm, activating a different warning tone that echoed throughout the compound. "All units to eastern perimeter," he shouted into his communication device. "External breach in progress. This is not a drill." Our eyes met as the realization hit us both. Grace's escape had been the perfect distraction. The coordinated attack was already underway. Chapter 293, Hazel's Decision. The cream-colored envelope felt heavy in my hands despite its light weight. I traced my fingers over the embossed logo of the European Medical Academy, still not quite believing what I was reading. The words blurred together as I scanned them for the 3rd time. "Pleased to offer you a position in our prestigious Human Medical Integration Program. 5-year comprehensive study. First cohort of wolf healers to fully bridge traditional methods with advanced human medical technologies." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was everything I'd been working toward. Validation that my research on integrating human medical techniques with wolf healing traditions had merit. The Academy was offering me a chance few wolves ever received. I set the letter down and took a deep breath. Connor needed to hear about this immediately. As I hurried through the corridors of the Reynolds pack house, I rehearsed how I would tell him. He would be proud, surely. Supportive, as he'd always been of my healing work. I found him in his study, poring over territory maps with his beta advisors. The moment he saw me hovering in the doorway, his expression softened. "Gentlemen, we'll continue this later," he told his advisors, who quickly gathered their materials and filed out. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Connor said once we were alone, his brow furrowing with concern. "What's happened?" I held up the envelope, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "I've been accepted into the European Medical Academy's new program. It's the integration program I told you about, the one that will train wolf healers in advanced human medical technologies." For a moment, Connor didn't react. Then his face fell slightly before he composed it into a careful mask. "That's in Europe?" he said flatly. Not quite the response I'd anticipated. "Yes, at their main campus. It's a 5-year program, but I'd be one of the first wolves to..." "5 years?" He cut me off, standing abruptly. "You're considering leaving for 5 years?" The excitement I'd felt moments ago began to deflate. "It's an incredible opportunity, Connor. No wolf healer has ever been given this kind of chance to formally study human medicine at this level." Connor paced the length of his office, running a hand through his dark hair. "I thought we had plans, Hazel. I've been working with the pack elders to prepare for our official mating ceremony this summer." My stomach dropped. "You've been... what? Without discussing it with me first? I want it to be a surprise," he said, his tone defensive. "I've been planning it for months." "But you never asked if that's what I wanted right now," I replied, struggling to keep my voice even. "You just assumed." Connor's jaw tightened. "Because I thought we were on the same page. I thought we wanted the same things." "I want this opportunity," I said firmly, holding up the letter. "This is the chance to make a real difference in wolf healing practices, to bring back knowledge that could save countless lives." "And what about us? What about our life here?" Connor gestured around him. "I'm the alpha here. I can't just leave with you." "I never asked you to," I said quietly. His eyes flashed. "So you'd choose this over us? Over becoming my mate?" The conversation was spiraling rapidly. "That's not what I said. Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't I pursue this and still be with you?" "Because you'd be gone for 5 years, Hazel." Connor's voice rose. 5 years on another continent. What kind of relationship would that be? "One built on trust and support," I shot back. "One where you believe in what I'm trying to accomplish, instead of making me choose between my work and you." Connor's face darkened. "This isn't just about your work, it's about your priorities, about choosing a life outside the pack over your responsibilities here." "My responsibility as a healer is to learn everything I can to better serve wolves everywhere, not just the Reynolds pack," I argued. "You've known this about me from the beginning." Connor stared at me for a long moment, hurt and anger warring in his eyes. "If you go to Europe, don't expect me to wait 5 years." His words hit me like a physical blow. I took a step back, stunned by the ultimatum. "Connor," I whispered, but he turned away, his shoulders rigid. "I need some space right now. We both do." I left his office with tears burning in my eyes, the acceptance letter crumpled in my fist. How had my moment of triumph turned so quickly to ashes? Back in my quarters, I tried to call Scarlett. If anyone would understand, it would be her. But the call went straight to voicemail, which was unusual. A vague sense of unease stirred within me. Scarlett almost always answered, and with everything happening at the Thorn Pack lately, I pushed the thought aside. I couldn't focus on that right now. Instead, I headed to the one person who might offer some perspective, my brother Aiden, who was packing for his assignment to the Frostfang Wastes. I found him in his rooms, surrounded by equipment and supplies. Heavy winter gear was piled on his bed, alongside specialized healing herbs that could withstand extreme cold. "Looks like you're preparing for war, rather than a research trip," I said from the doorway. Aiden looked up, his expression brightening when he saw me. "That's because your friend Roman is sending me into exile, not on a research trip." Despite his words, there was no real bitterness in his tone. "At least you'll have peace and quiet to work on your research," I offered. "True, no distractions except the occasional frostbite and hypothermia cases." He set down the thermal container he'd been packing and studied my face. "You've been crying. What's happened?" I handed him the letter, watching as he scanned its contents. His eyes widened. "The European Medical Academy? Hazel, this is incredible. They never accept wolves into their advanced programs." His excitement faded as he noticed my expression. "What's wrong? This is what you've always wanted." "Connor doesn't see it that way," I said, sinking onto the edge of his bed. "He gave me an ultimatum, him or the program." Aiden's face hardened. "That's not fair." "He says he's been planning our mating ceremony for this summer, without telling me." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. "He sees this as me abandoning him and the pack." Aiden sat beside me, his usual playfulness replaced by thoughtful concern. "Have you ever noticed how similar healing and love can be? Both require patience, deep understanding, and sometimes painful honesty. I glanced at him skeptically. When did you become so philosophical? Impending exile gives one perspective, he replied with a small smile. Look, Hazel, our healing gift isn't just about serving a pack. It's about advancing our knowledge for all wolves. Connor loves you, but he needs to love who you truly are, not who he wants you to be. His words resonated deeply. But what if he's right? What if I am being selfish, putting my ambitions above everything else? Is that really what you're doing? Aiden asked. Or are you pursuing knowledge that could help countless wolves in the future, including his pack? I considered this. I've always believed our healing traditions could be enhanced by human medical advancements. The wolves who survive silver poisoning or who recover from hybrid diseases like the one that affected Natalie Thorn, they could benefit from what I learn. Exactly, Aiden nodded. This isn't just about your career. It's about your calling. But 5 years is a long time, I whispered. What if he's not waiting when I return? Aiden squeezed my hand. Then perhaps he wasn't the mate you needed for the long journey ahead. Real love makes room for growth, Hazel. It doesn't confine. I spent the next 3 days in deep contemplation, walking the Reynolds Pack grounds and weighing my options. Every path seemed to lead to heartache of one kind or another. Turning down the academy would mean living with regret, wondering what knowledge I might have gained, what differences I might have made. But accepting meant possibly losing Connor forever. On the third evening, I made my decision. My heart ached, but my mind was clear as I headed to Connor's quarters. He opened the door immediately, as if he'd been waiting. His face was drawn, with dark circles under his eyes that matched my own. I've made my decision, I said quietly. He nodded, stepping back to let me enter. I thought you might have. The room was dim, lit only by a few candles. It gave everything a soft, dreamlike quality that made this moment feel even more surreal. I'm going to accept the offer, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. This is something I need to do, Connor. Not just for me, but for what it could mean for wolf healing practices everywhere. I braced myself for anger, for more ultimatums. Instead, Connor surprised me by closing his eyes briefly, a look of pain crossing his features before he nodded slowly. I thought you might say that, he said softly. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days. And? I asked, hardly daring to breathe. And I realized something, he continued, moving to stand by the window. I've been trying to protect you so much that I forgot to let you grow. I've been smothering you while thinking I was supporting you. Tears pricked at my eyes. Connor? I'm still not happy about it, he admitted, turning to face me. 5 years is a long time, and I don't know what it means for us. But I was wrong to try to force you to choose. I stepped closer to him, relief washing over me. Does this mean... It means I'm trying, he interrupted, his voice strained. I can't promise to wait 5 years, Hazel. That wouldn't be fair to either of us, but I can promise to support your decision, even though it hurts. It wasn't everything I'd hoped for, but it was honest. And honesty, painful as it might be, was something I'd always valued in Connor. Thank you, I whispered. That's all I can ask for. Connor took my hands in his thumbs tracing gentle circles on my skin. I've been trying to protect you so much that I forgot to let you grow, he acknowledged again, his voice thick with emotion. I just hope that when you do grow, there's still a place for me in your life. I squeezed his hands, feeling both the weight and the rightness of my decision. I hope so too. Chapter 294, The Mating Ceremony, Third Persons. The morning of Roman and Scarlett's official mating ceremony arrived with a tense undercurrent running throughout the Thorn Pack house. Despite the recent security breach and Grace Winter's escape, Roman had refused to postpone the ceremony. Delaying would signal weakness to our enemies, he had told his advisors during an emergency meeting. We proceed as planned, but with triple security. Hunter Stone had nodded in agreement. The pack needs this ceremony. It reinforces your bond and strengthens our position among allied packs. Now, as dawn broke over the eastern territories, the great hall of the Thorn Pack house hummed with activity. Pack members worked diligently to transform the ancient space according to traditions that stretched back generations. Silver-blue banners bearing the Thorn Pack symbol, a wolf silhouette surrounded by thorned vines, hung from the high ceiling. Moonstone lanterns cast a soft, ethereal glow over the proceedings, their light designed to mimic the sacred full moon under which wolves traditionally mated. At the altar stood ancient ceremonial artifacts: a silver chalice, a blade of pure silver that had been in the Thorn family for centuries, and a woven cord of silver-blue thread. Luna Catherine moved through the hall with purpose, inspecting every detail. Despite the strain of recent events, she carried herself with the dignity befitting her position. The eastern windows should be uncovered, she instructed a group of beta wolves. The morning light must touch the altar during the binding words. Her gaze softened as she noticed Scarlet standing in the doorway, watching the preparations with wide eyes. "Come, my dear," Luna Catherine called, extending her hand. "It's time for you to prepare." Scarlet moved forward, visibly emotional at the sight of the transformed hall. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Luna Catherine squeezed her hand. "As it should be for my son's mate and the mother of his child." In her private chambers, Scarlet sat patiently as attendants helped her into the ceremonial robes. The silver-blue fabric flowed like water, adorned with protective runes that Natalie had designed specifically for her. The symbols combined traditional pack protection with special elements to safeguard both Scarlet and her unborn child. "How are you feeling?" Natalie asked as she fastened the final clasp at Scarlet's shoulder. "Nervous," Scarlet admitted. "But not about the ceremony." Her hand drifted to her still flat stomach. "I can't help thinking about Grace being out there somewhere, planning something." Natalie's expression hardened. "Grace Winter won't come anywhere near this ceremony. Hunter has the entire perimeter locked down tighter than the territory vaults." As Natalie spoke, Emma entered carrying a small wooden box. "The ceremonial herbs for your hair," she explained, opening it to reveal fragrant sprigs of moon-blessed lavender and rosemary, for protection and remembrance. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she worked the herbs into Scarlet's auburn hair. Since her confession about her human father, she had been constantly vigilant, watchings of her father's rivals among the pack staff. "Thank you for standing with me today," Scarlet said, reaching up to squeeze Emma's hand. "After everything that's happened." Emma shook her head, blinking back tears. "You're my family, Scarlet. Where else would I be?" Across the pack house, Roman stood before a mirror as Hunter helped him adjust the formal alpha robes. The deep blue garment was lined with silver threads that caught the light with every movement. "Perimeter report," Roman said, his tone making it clear this was business, not conversation. Hunter nodded, understanding. "Triple patrols on all boundaries. Allied pack representatives have all been individually verified. Every guest is being screened through 3 checkpoints before entering the ceremony hall." Roman's jaw tightened. "And Grace?" "Still no sign of her since the escape. We found traces near the western border yesterday, but the trail went cold." Hunter paused. "She's dying, Roman. The silver poisoning has spread too far. Whatever she's planning, she won't have the strength to execute it herself. Which makes her more dangerous, not less," Roman replied. "She has nothing to lose." A knock at the door interrupted them. Aidan Walsh entered, looking unusually serious. "Everything's ready," he reported. "The ceremonial herbs have been blessed, and the guests are assembling." Roman nodded, taking a deep breath. Despite the security concerns, a part of him couldn't help but feel anticipation. After years of loving Scarlet from afar, after the pain of their separation and the joy of their reunion, today they would formally declare their bond before the entire wolf community. "It's time," he said, his voice steady. In the Great Hall, representatives from allied packs filled the rows of seats. The Thorn Pack members stood proudly against the walls, their presence forming a protective circle around the proceedings. Emma noticed the tight security, guards positioned at every entrance, their eyes constantly scanning the crowd. A hush fell over the assembly as Luna Catherine took her place at the altar. As the Alpha Mother, her role carried special significance, symbolizing the continuity of pack leadership. The ancestral drums began to beat, a slow, steady rhythm that resonated through the hall. All eyes turned to the entrance as Roman appeared, his tall figure commanding immediate respect. He walked slowly toward the altar, acknowledging the assembled wolves with formal nods. When he reached Luna Catherine, He turned to face the entrance, waiting. The drums changed rhythm. Quickening, the assembled wolves rose to their feet as Scarlet appeared in the doorway, radiant in her ceremonial robes. Her emerald eyes were bright with emotion as she began her walk toward Roman. For Scarlet, that walk seemed both eternal and instantaneous. She felt the weight of every step, the significance of this moment after everything they had endured. As she moved forward, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come from the frightened pup rescued by the Thorn Pack years ago. When she reached Roman's side, their eyes met, and the world around them seemed to fade. His normally stoic expression softened, revealing the depth of his feelings. Luna Catherine's voice rang out, strong and clear as she began the ancient rites in the old wolf language. The words flowed like music, calling upon the ancestors to witness the union. Unter luna plena, duos animas conjunguntur, she intoned. Under the full moon, two souls are joined. Roman and Scarlet clasped hands as Luna Catherine wound the silver-blue cord around their wrists, binding them together physically as they were already bound spiritually through their mate bond. Speak your vows before your pack and ancestors, Luna Catherine instructed. Roman went first, his voice husky with emotion that surprised many who knew him only as the fierce, bus-controlled alpha. Scarlet Winters, I pledge myself to you not just as alpha to mate, but as equal partners in life. Through separation, betrayal, and danger, our bond has only grown stronger. His thumb traced gentle circles on her hand. You are my strength, my heart, my future. Whatever comes, we face it together. Tears glistened in Scarlet's eyes as she responded. Roman Thorn, I return to you as I always have, drawn by a bond that transcends distance and time. You were my protector, my friend, and now my mate, and the father of our child. Her voice steadied with conviction. I pledge to stand beside you, to support you, to build our pack and our family with love and strength. Luna Catherine smiled warmly as she raised the ceremonial chalice. Drink now from the same cup, as you will share all things in your life together. They each took a sip of the blessed wine before Luna Catherine began the final blessing. Now we call upon our allies to witness and acknowledge this union. This was the Circle of Unity, one of the most significant parts of the ceremony, where representatives from allied packs stepped forward to formally recognize the mated pair. The first to approach was Eric Blackwood, his imposing figure commanding respect as he placed a hand on Roman's shoulder and nodded to Scarlet. The Blackwood pack acknowledges this union, he stated formally. One by one, allies came forward. Nathan Blake, Connor Reynolds, and others from packs across the territories. Each pronounced the formal acknowledgement, strengthening the political bonds between their packs. Then, to the surprise of many, Darian Morrison stepped into the circle. A murmur swept through the assembled wolves. Darian, once exiled by Roman, now stood before them as if he belonged. The Morrison wolves acknowledge this union, he said, his voice carrying through the hall. Roman's acceptance of him in the circle caused another ripple of whispers. It signaled a significant shift in their relationship, one that would not go unnoticed among the territorial packs. As the final blessings were being pronounced, Hunter Stone approached Roman discreetly, his expression carefully controlled. He leaned in close, his words meant only for Roman's ears. Grace Winter has been spotted near the northern edge of the pack house, accompanied by unknown wolves. Chapter 295, The Alliance Revealed. The sacred words of the mating ceremony still hung in the air, but my focus had already shifted. Hunter's warning about Grace Winter sent ice through my veins, not for fear of what she might do, but for the audacity of her timing. Maintain the ceremony, I murmured to Hunter. We'll handle this. Scarlet's eyes met mine across our bound wrists. She'd heard Hunter's whispered warning through our mate bond. Go, she said softly. I'll finish the rites with Luna Catherine. With a barely perceptible nod, I stepped back, allowing Luna Catherine to continue the ceremony. I moved to the side where Hunter waited, already assembling a small team of elite enforcers. Northern edge, near the moon pool, Hunter confirmed quietly. 5 unknown wolves with her. Something's off about them. They move strangely. Human, a voice interjected from behind us. Nuff, I turned to find Darian Morrison standing there, uninvited but undeterred. They're humans trained to mimic wolf movements, he elaborated. I've tracked this group before. They work for a human crime organization with a particular hatred for wolves. Any other day, I would have questioned his presence, his knowledge, his intentions. But time was critical. You're coming with us, I decided. If you know these people, your insight might be valuable. Darian nodded. I was going to suggest the same thing. We moved silently through the pack house, avoiding the main corridors where guests were still arriving for the post-ceremony celebration. Hunter led us through a service passage that opened directly onto the northern grounds. The sacred moon pool came into view as we emerged from the tree line. Its silver waters, blessed by generations of lunathorns, reflected the morning light like molten metal. Grace stood at its edge, surrounded by her companions. Even from a distance, I could see the gray pallor of her skin. The silver poisoning had progressed significantly since her escape. Surround them, I instructed my enforcers, but don't engage unless I give the signal. As we approached, Grace turned. Her once beautiful features were now gaunt and sickly, but her eyes burned with hatred that seemed to give her unnatural strength. "Where's your precious mate, Alpha Thorn?" she called out, her voice raspy, but still carrying the venom I'd come to expect from her. Too afraid to face me herself? I stopped several yards from her group, assessing the 5 figures surrounding Grace. They wore wolf clothing and moved with studied precision. But Darian was right. There was something distinctly non-wolf about them. Their scents were masked with chemicals, but beneath that, I detected the unmistakable smell of humanity. "Luna Scarlet has more important matters than entertaining a dying traitor," I replied coolly. "The ceremony continues without interruption. Your presence here changes nothing." Grace's face contorted. "Their weapons likely contain enhanced silver compounds. I've seen what they can do. They target wolf packs that interfere with their business." I gave a barely perceptible nod, signaling Hunter to adjust our strategy accordingly. My mind raced, calculating our options. We could take down these humans, but if they had enhanced silver weapons, casualties were inevitable. "Grace," I said, maintaining my calm despite the growing tension, "whatever Alexander promised you, he lied. So look at yourself. You're dying. He's using you for his own agenda against the Thorn Pack." "You're wrong," she hissed, spittle flying from her gray lips. "He still loves me. He just needs to see that I can remove obstacles." She smiled, a terrible sight with her gray-tinged lips, "starting with your little friend Emma. Emma Chase is under my protection," I stated firmly. "Anyone who threatens her faces the full might of the Thorn Pack." Mateo laughed, the sound cold and calculating. "Your pack is occupied with ceremony celebrations. Your security is focused on the main house. We already have people inside." He checked his watch. "In fact, they should be reaching the girls' quarters right about now." Cold fury rose within me. The thought of infiltrators in my territory threatening my people on the day of my mating ceremony sent rage pulsing through my veins. My wolf clawed beneath my skin, demanding release. I was about to signal the attack when movement at the edge of the clearing caught my attention. My blood froze as Emma Chase herself stepped into view, her face pale but determined. How had she escaped her guards? Why was she here of all places? The questions raced through my mind as I witnessed the disastrous scene unfolding. The humans immediately turned toward her, their postures shifting to predatory alertness. Grace's face lit with malicious triumph. "Emma," Mateo called out, his voice falsely warm. "How convenient of you to join us. We were just discussing your mother." I tensed, ready to spring into action. Hunter and our enforcers shifted their positions, preparing for my signal. Darian's hand moved subtly toward what I suspected was a concealed weapon. In that moment, when everyone's attention was focused on Emma, I realized that Grace's plan may have been centered on Scarlet, but these people weren't. And their real target had been Emma all along. Chapter 296. The Final Battle. Tension crackled in the air around the sacred moon pool. The 5 human operatives had formed a loose semicircle, their attention now fully focused on Emma Chase, who stood at the edge of the clearing with her chin raised defiantly despite the fear evident in her eyes. "For the last time," Mateo Rivera said, his voice deceptively calm, "where is Elena hiding?" Emma's hands trembled slightly at her sides, but her voice remained steady. "I don't know, and even if I did, I would never tell you." Roman Thorn watched the exchange with calculated intensity, silently signaling his enforcers to prepare for his command. Hunter Stone had positioned his wolves strategically around the clearing, each one poised to strike. Mateo's face hardened. Your loyalty is admirable, but misplaced. Your mother abandoned you. She left you vulnerable while she saved herself. You don't know anything about my mother, Emma replied, her voice rising slightly. I know enough. Mateo took a step toward her. I know she's been running from us for years. I know she's hidden herself too well for even our best trackers to find. His scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. But you're the key. The one weakness in her armor. Grace Winter stood beside Mateo, her once beautiful face now gaunt and gray with silver poisoning. A look of triumph gleamed in her fevered eyes. You should have stayed away from the Thorn Pack, she told Emma with bitter satisfaction. When I learned who you really were, who your father was, it was too perfect. The perfect leverage against Scarlet. Mateo turned slightly, regarding Grace with cold assessment. Speaking of leverage that's outlived its usefulness, he nodded to one of his men, who immediately drew a silver-loaded weapon and aimed it at Grace. Grace's expression shifted from triumph to shock. What are you doing? We had a deal. The deal was for you to get us access to the girl, Mateo replied dispassionately. You've served your purpose. Understanding dawned on Grace's face. She had been nothing more than a pawn, used for her knowledge and connections, then discarded when no longer needed. Wait, she cried, desperation clear in her voice. I have more to offer. I know about Alexander Amber's operations, his secret communications with rogue packs, his plans for the Northern Territories. Mateo paused, interest flickering across his face. Go on. He's not just after the Thorn Pack, Grace continued rapidly. He's building alliances with rogues across all territories. He has access to security protocols for every major pack in the north. Her voice grew stronger as she recognized her only chance at survival. I can tell you everything. His weaknesses, his strategies, his contacts. Roman exchanged a meaningful glance with Hunter. This information, if true, could change the power dynamics of the entire northern region. Before Mateo could respond, one of his operatives grew impatient. Enough of this, the man growled, raising his weapon toward Emma. Let's take the girl and be done with it. We can get the information another way. The weapon gleamed in the morning light, a specialized gun that Roman immediately recognized as designed for silver ammunition. The sight of it aimed at Emma was all Roman needed. He gave a sharp whistle, the signal his pack had been waiting for. In an instant, chaos erupted around the moon pool. Thorn Pack enforcers emerged from their strategic positions, attacking with coordinated precision. The human operatives reacted immediately, their training evident in how quickly they shifted to defensive positions. Darian Morrison moved with shocking speed, disarming the operative closest to him with a technique Roman recognized from Thorn Pack training. The realization struck him. Darian was fighting with moves that complemented his own pack's tactics perfectly, suggesting he had retained more from his years in the Thorn Pack than anyone had suspected. Hunter engaged two operatives simultaneously, his wolf-enhanced strength giving him a clear advantage in close combat. The remaining enforcers targeted the other humans, driving them back from both Emma and the sacred pool. Roman himself moved directly toward Mateo, who had drawn a silver blade from his boot. They circled each other warily. You've made a grave mistake coming here, Roman growled. The Thorn Pack does not forgive those who threaten our own. Mateo's scarred face remained impassive. And the Rivera family does not leave business unfinished, Wolf. They clashed in a blur of movement, each testing the other's defenses. Roman was surprised at the human's speed and skill. Clearly, he was no ordinary criminal, but someone trained specifically for combat against wolfkind. Amid the fighting, Grace saw her opportunity. With everyone's attention focused on the battle, she slipped away from the conflict, moving with unexpected agility for someone in her condition. She circled the edge of the clearing, her destination clear in her mind, the main pack house, where Scarlet would be continuing the ceremony. Her body was failing, the silver poison burning through her system, but hatred gave her strength. One last chance to strike at the woman who had taken everything from her. Her position, Alexander's affection, her future. She clutched a small silver-loaded pistol that she had kept hidden from Mateo's men, saving it for this final purpose. The ceremony had concluded, but the unease in my gut wouldn't subside. Despite Roman's instructions to remain in the secure area of the pack house, I couldn't stand the waiting, the not knowing. My mate was facing danger, and I couldn't stay safely tucked away. I slipped past the guards during a shift change, using passages I had known since childhood. As Luna of the Thorn Pack, I should have been setting a better example, but the pull to be near Roman, to help if I could, was too strong to resist. I made my way toward the northern grounds, guided by the sounds of conflict. As I reached the edge of the forest, surrounding the moon pool clearing, I caught glimpses of the battle. Roman engaging a scarred human, Hunter fighting two opponents at once, Darian moving with lethal grace against another attacker. And then I saw her. Grace Winter was creeping along the opposite edge of the clearing, clearly trying to remain unnoticed amid the chaos. Her skin had a grayish cast to it, and she moved with the stiffness of someone in great pain, but her eyes burned with malevolent purpose. Those eyes met mine across the clearing, and in that instant I knew I was her target. Had been all along. Her lips curved into a terrible smile as she changed direction, moving directly toward me. The silver poisoning had hollowed her cheeks and leached the color from her once lustrous hair, but it had done nothing to diminish the hatred that radiated from her. I stood my ground, refusing to show fear. As she drew closer, I noticed something clutched in her right hand, a small pistol that glinted dangerously in the dappled sunlight. "Scarlet Winters," she rasped, raising the gun with a trembling hand. "Always the precious one. Always the special one." "It's over, Grace," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Look at yourself. This pursuit of revenge has destroyed you. After I kill you, Alexander will understand," she said, her voice dreamlike despite the gun now pointed directly at my chest. "He'll see that I was right all along, that you were the obstacle to our happiness." "Alexander doesn't love you, Grace," I replied, trying to reason with her despite knowing it was futile. "He never did. He used you, just like these humans used you." "Liar!" she shrieked, her finger tightening on the trigger. Everything happened at once. I tensed, preparing to dive aside, calculating if I could move fast enough to avoid a silver bullet at this range. But before I could move, a blur of motion inserted itself between Grace and me. Darian Morrison had somehow spotted the confrontation from the midst of the battle. He hurled himself forward, directly into the path of Grace's aim. The gun went off with a sharp Darian's body jerked violently as the silver bullet struck him in the shoulder, the impact throwing him backward. He stumbled, his face contorted in pain as the silver burned into his flesh. As he fell to one knee, his eyes met mine, filled not with regret but with fierce protectiveness. "Silver blade, in her boot," he gasped through clenched teeth, warning me even as he clutched his wounded shoulder. I stood frozen in shock at his selfless act. This was the man who had hunted me, who had tried to claim me against my will, yet he had just taken a silver bullet, meant for me, protecting both me and my unborn child without hesitation. Even as he lay wounded, Darian's gaze remained fixed on Grace, who was already reaching for the concealed weapon he had warned me about. Chapter 297, Grace's End. "Silver blade in her boot," he gasped, clutching his wounded shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, but his gaze remained fixed on Grace. Even wounded, he was still trying to protect me. Grace's eyes burned with manic rage as she realized her shot had missed its intended target. Her once beautiful face was now a ghastly mask, skin gray from silver poisoning, cheeks hollow, lips cracked and discolored. But her eyes, those held a fire that seemed to consume her from within. "You!" she screamed, her voice a ragged, broken thing. "Always protected, always special." She reached down with trembling fingers, pulling a silver dagger from her boot just as Darian had warned. The blade gleamed wickedly in the dappled light filtering through the trees. "No one to save you this time," she snarled, lunging toward me with surprising speed for someone so close to death. Years of combat training with the Thorn Pack took over. I sidestepped her attack easily, my body moving almost without conscious thought. Grace stumbled past me, nearly falling but catching herself at the last moment. She whirled around, the dagger slashing wildly through the air. I maintained my distance, unwilling to engage her directly. Not because I feared her. The Grace before me was a hollow shell of the formidable opponent she once was, but because I couldn't bring myself to strike someone already dying. "Fight me," she screamed, spittle flying from her gray-tinged lips. "Have the courage to face me yourself instead of hiding behind others." "This isn't courage, Grace," I replied calmly. "This is madness." Her face twisted with hatred. "Madness. You stole everything from me. My position, my future, Alexander's love, everything that should have been mine." She lunged again, and again I evaded her. Each movement seemed to cost her greatly. Her breathing grew more labored, her steps more unsteady. Hunter Stone appeared at the edge of the clearing, his clothes torn and bloodied from his fight with Mateo's men. "Surrender, Grace Winter," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of the Thorn Pack's beta. "You're surrounded. It's over." Grace's laugh was a terrible, broken sound. "Over? Yes, it is over for me." She turned her burning gaze back to me. "But I won't go alone. I'd rather die than live in a world where she has everything I deserved." Hunter moved forward cautiously, but Grace paid him no mind. Her focus remained entirely on me, her hatred like a physical force between us. "You were never anything," she spat. "A lost pup, a charity case. Yet somehow you ended up with everything. The pack, the position, the alpha." Her voice cracked. "Even your own biological parents chose me over you. What does that tell you about your worth?" The words were meant to cut deep, to make me doubt myself even now, but they found no purchase. "It tells me nothing about my worth," I replied steadily. "Only about theirs." Something changed in Grace's eyes then, a flash of something almost like clarity breaking through the madness. For a fraction of a second, I thought perhaps she might surrender, might allow this to end without more bloodshed. I was wrong. With a primal scream, Grace drew back her arm, the silver dagger gripped tightly in her trembling fingers. Her target was unmistakable, not my heart this time, but lower, where my unborn child grew. Time seemed to slow. I tensed, preparing to dodge, but the angle was awkward. I wasn't certain I could move quickly enough. The sharp twang of a bowstring cut through the air. An arrow flew from the forest edge with deadly precision, striking Grace's wrist. The dagger fell from her nerveless fingers, clattering harmlessly to the ground as she howled in pain and surprise. "Enough, Grace." Alexander Amber stepped from the tree line, another arrow already knocked in his bow. His handsome face was grim, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and determination. "Alexander?" Grace's voice cracked, childlike in its sudden hope and confusion. "You came for me?" He lowered his bow slowly. "I came to stop you. I've been tracking you since you escaped the healing center." "Then you understand," she said eagerly, stepping toward him despite the arrow still embedded in her wrist. "You understand why I had to do this. She took everything from us, Alexander. Once she's gone, we can—" "No, Grace." His voice was gentle but firm. "There is no we anymore. There never truly was." The truth of his words seemed to physically strike her. She staggered, her legs finally giving out beneath her. She collapsed to her knees, her strength exhausted. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, another sign of how advanced the silver poisoning had become. Her organs were shutting down, her body finally surrendering to the poison that had been slowly killing her for months. "You promised," she whispered, her eyes never leaving Alexander's face. "You promised we would be together." Alexander shook his head, his expression pained but resolute. "I made many promises I shouldn't have, Grace. To you and others, I was weak, and my weakness caused harm." Grace's body shuddered violently. She tried to rise but couldn't find the strength. Instead, she crawled toward him, leaving a smear of blood on the forest floor. "Please," she begged, her voice barely audible, "don't leave me to die alone." The sight struck something in me. Pity, perhaps. Despite everything she had done, everything she had tried to do, there was something unbearably human about her desperation in that moment. I moved forward, kneeling beside her but maintaining a cautious distance. Grace's gaze shifted to me, her eyes widening in surprise. "You," she rasped. "Why would you—" "No one should die alone," I said simply. Her breathing was becoming more labored now, each inhale a struggle, each exhale a ragged whisper. The silver poisoning was completing its deadly work, accelerated by her exertions. "Will you?" she began, then stopped, swallowing with difficulty. "Will you ever forgive me for what I've done?" I looked into the eyes of the wolf who had caused me so much pain, who had schemed against me, who had tried to kill me multiple times, who had just moments ago attempted to murder my unborn child. I owed her nothing, least of all a comforting lie. "No, Grace," I answered honestly. "I won't forgive you, but I can offer you peace in your final moments, which is more than you ever offered me." A strange expression crossed her face, not anger or hatred, but something almost like understanding. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. I leaned closer, cautious but willing to grant this final request. "I never," she whispered, "never knew what it meant, to be truly loved, not like you are." Her body convulsed one final time. Then, with a soft sigh, Grace Winter was gone, her obsession with destroying me having ultimately led to her own destruction. For a long moment, no one moved. The clearing was silent, save for the gentle lapping of the sacred moon pool waters against its banks. Then Hunter stepped forward, gesturing to two of his wolves. "Prepare her body according to tradition," he ordered quietly. Despite everything Grace had done, despite all the pain she had caused, I nodded my agreement. She would be wrapped in the ceremonial manner for wolves who die away from their territories, her body treated with a dignity she had never shown to others. As Hunter's wolves carefully lifted Grace's form, I turned my attention to Darian, who still knelt in the same spot, his face pale from silver poisoning, but his eyes clear and watching me. Alexander stood apart from us all, his bow now lowered completely, his expression unreadable as he watched Grace's body being carried away. The man who had once promised her everything now offered her nothing but silent witness to her end. Grace Winter was gone, her life consumed by hatred and obsession. But the consequences of her actions, and those who had enabled her, remained. Chapter 298, Alexander's Redemption. I watched as Grace's body was carried away, wrapped in the traditional wolf burial shroud. My heart felt like a stone in my chest. How had we come to this? How had I let things go so far? The Thorn Pack wolves formed a protective circle around Scarlet, their eyes hostile as they watched my every move. Roman Thorn stood beside her, his hand firmly on her lower back, possessive and protective. The tension in the clearing was thick enough to cut with a knife. I lowered my bow completely and took a hesitant step forward. Several wolves tensed, ready to attack if I made any threatening move. "I'd like to speak with Scarlet," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Privately, if possible." Roman's face hardened instantly. Absolutely not. His rejection wasn't surprising. If our positions were reversed, I wouldn't have allowed it either. "Please," I tried again, addressing Scarlet directly. "There are things I need to say, things you deserve to hear." Roman stepped slightly in front of Scarlet, his stance unmistakably protective. "After everything you've done, after your part in Grace's schemes, you think I'd leave my mate alone with you for even a second?" Scarlet placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Roman?" Just that one word, but I could see the silent communication passing between them. Their mate bond was strong, perhaps stronger than any I'd witnessed before. The thought brought a pang of what might have been, quickly replaced by shame at my own actions. Scarlet's emerald eyes met mine, assessing. 5 minutes, within sight but out of earshot. Roman didn't like it. That much was obvious from the tension in his jaw, but he gave a short nod. Hunter stays within striking distance. Scarlet led me to a small clearing a short distance away. Close enough that Roman could see us clearly, but far enough that our conversation wouldn't carry back to the others. The beta Hunter Stone positioned himself halfway between us and Roman, his eyes never leaving me. "You're taking a risk," I said softly. "Trusting me after everything." Scarlet's gaze was level. "I'm not trusting you. I'm curious why you're here and why you stopped Grace when you've supported her for so long." Her directness cut through any pretense I might have attempted. This wasn't a woman who would accept anything less than the complete truth. I took a deep breath. "I came to apologize, though I know words are inadequate for the harm I've caused." Scarlet said nothing, her face impassive. "I was a fool," I continued, the words coming out in a rush now. "Blinded by my infatuation with Grace, by wounded pride when you chose Roman over me. I allowed my father's ambitions and Grace's manipulations to push me into actions I knew were wrong." Still, Scarlet remained silent, waiting. When Grace first approached me about joining forces against you, I should have refused. Instead, I saw it as an opportunity to hurt you as I felt you had hurt me. I shook my head at my own foolishness. I provided her with resources, with connections. I convinced myself it was justified. And when she tried to kill me? Scarlet finally spoke, her voice cold. Was that justified too? I flinched. I never knew about her plans to physically harm you. I swear it. When I discovered what she'd done, what she was planning to do, I was horrified. Yet you continued to support her. Yes. There was no defense for that. I told myself she was desperate, that the silver poisoning was affecting her mind. I made excuses because I couldn't face my own complicity. The weight of my failures pressed down on me. So many poor choices, so many moments when I could have taken a different path. I had no knowledge of her alliance with those human operatives, I continued. When I learned she'd escaped the healing center, I tracked her movements. I discovered she was planning something at your mating ceremony, something involving outside forces. Scarlet's eyes narrowed. How did you find out? One of my loyal betas intercepted a message meant for Grace. It mentioned a meeting at the sacred moon pool and... I hesitated, then forced myself to continue, and a plan to ensure you suffered the greatest possible loss. Understanding dawned in Scarlet's eyes. She instinctively placed a hand over her abdomen where her unborn child grew. When I realized she was targeting not just you, but your child, I knew I couldn't stand by any longer. I tracked her to your territory, arriving just as she was preparing her final attack. Scarlet studied me, her gaze penetrating. Why the sudden change of heart, Alexander? After years of enabling her, why stop her now? It was a fair question. Because despite everything, I never wanted innocent blood on my hands, and because I finally saw Grace clearly, not as the woman I'd constructed in my imagination, but as she truly was. Consumed by hatred, willing to murder an unborn child for revenge. I swallowed hard. That's not who I want to be, Scarlet. Not the kind of alpha I want to be. Scarlet's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Not softening exactly, but acknowledging. You stopped her final attack, she said evenly. And for that, I thank you. But it doesn't erase years of pain, Alexander. It doesn't erase your part in what she became. I know. I nodded, accepting her judgment. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Scarlet. I don't deserve it, and I wouldn't insult you by requesting it. Then what are you asking for? I straightened my shoulders. A cessation of active hostilities between our packs. The Amber Pack is struggling to survive. My father's leadership has fractured us, and the pressure from the Thorn Pack has pushed us to the brink. It was humbling to admit our weakness, but there was no point in pretense. Scarlet knew the state of the Northern Territories better than most. You want us to stop applying pressure so you can rebuild, Scarlet clarified. Yes, not to return to our former position. That's gone, and rightfully so, but to stabilize enough that innocent pack members don't suffer for the sins of their leaders. Scarlet considered this, her expression thoughtful. And what will you offer in return? A complete withdrawal from all matters concerning the Thorn Pack. No interference, no schemes, no alliances against you, and my word that I will ensure the Amber Pack never again poses a threat to you or yours. It wasn't much of an offer, essentially promising to do what we should have done all along, but it was all I had. Your word hasn't held much value in the past, Scarlet pointed out. No, I admitted. It hasn't, but it's all I can offer now. Scarlet was quiet for a moment, weighing my words. Finally, she nodded slowly. I'll discuss your request with Roman. I can't promise anything, but if you're sincere about rebuilding without interference in our affairs, I believe we can reach an arrangement. Relief washed through me. It was more than I had dared to hope for. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she cautioned. While I might be willing to let the Amber Pack attempt to rebuild, I haven't forgotten anything. Neither has Roman. I nodded, accepting the implicit warning. I understand. What will you do now? She asked. Return to what's left of my pack. Try to rebuild under my leadership, not my father's. I gave a humorless smile. Except that we will never again hold the position and power we once had. It's the price we pay for our actions against you and our alliance with Grace. Scarlet's expression softened slightly, not with forgiveness, but with something like recognition of my acceptance of reality. For what it's worth, I added quietly, I am truly sorry for the pain I've caused, not just to you, but to everyone caught in the wake of my poor choices. Scarlet nodded once, a simple acknowledgement. Then she turned and walked back toward Roman, who had been watching us intently throughout our conversation. I remained a moment longer, watching the Thorn Pack gather around their Alpha and Luna. The contrast between their unity and the fractured state of the Amber Pack was stark. We had a long road ahead, one with no guarantees of success. But as I shouldered my bow and prepared to leave Thorn territory, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: clarity. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but at least now I could see it. I headed north, leaving behind the body of the woman I had once thought I loved and the ruins of the person I had been. The future of the Amber Pack, whatever remained of it, awaited my return. As I crossed the territory boundary, I accepted that my family would never regain their former status and power, a consequence of their actions against Scarlet and their alliance with Grace. It was time to build something new from the ashes of our mistakes. Chapter 299, New Beginnings. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at the moon pool. Life at the Thorn Pack house had returned to normal. From my window, I watched Scarlet cross the courtyard with Roman, his hand protectively resting on her now visible pregnancy. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Natalie entered with an envelope. "Special courier from the Northern Territories," she said. My hands shook as I recognized my mother's handwriting. I read the letter and sank onto my bed. "My father is coming here," I told Natalie, my voice barely audible. "In 3 days. Is that good news?" she asked cautiously. "My mother says he's neutralized the threats against her, both from her enemies and within his organization." I stared at the letter. "He wants to meet me. How do you feel about that?" "Scared," I admitted. "What if he's disappointed in me? I'm not strong like you or Scarlet." Natalie laughed. "You survived Eric Blackwood's villa. That's strength. Will you stand with me when he comes?" "Of course," she promised. "We all will." I told Roman and Scarlet about the visit. Roman increased security, standard protocol for powerful visitors, he assured me. Scarlet hugged me tightly. "He'll love you," she said with such certainty that I almost believed her. The morning of his arrival, I changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress that matched my eyes. I paced nervously until word came that a vehicle was approaching. In the formal reception area, Scarlet squeezed my hand. "Breathe. He's the one who should be nervous, not you." The sound of footsteps made my heart race. I turned to see my father for the first time. Miguel Rivera walked through Roman's elite guards without a trace of fear. He was tall and powerful, with dark hair touched by gray. His composed expression shattered completely when his eyes, the same dark blue as mine, landed on me. "Emma," he breathed my name like a prayer. Tears filled his eyes. He took a hesitant step forward. "You look so much like her," he said softly. "Like your mother. But your eyes?" "Are yours," I finished, finding my voice. "May I come closer?" he asked, this powerful man suddenly uncertain. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He stopped just within reach. "I've looked for you both for so long," he said, voice rough with emotion. "After Elena disappeared with you, I never stopped searching. She was protecting me. I defended my mother's choice." "I know." His smile was sad. "She thought I wouldn't accept a wolf child, that my enemies would target you. She didn't understand I would have protected you both with my life." "Would you have?" I needed to hear it. Without hesitation, "I loved your mother from the moment I saw her, and I've loved the idea of you, my daughter, even though I've never been allowed to know you." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I'd never considered he might have felt loss too, the loss of a child he never got to see grow up. He reached for my hand slowly. When I didn't pull away, he gently took it in his. "I just want to know you, Emma, if you'll let me." Looking into his eyes, my eyes, I felt something shift inside me. The fear made room for hope. "I'd like that," I whispered. For the first time, I realized my father had never stopped loving me. He had searched for years, never giving up hope of finding the daughter he'd never met. Third person's P. While Emma reconnected with her past, Natalie Thorn faced danger. Her convoy was ambushed on a narrow forest road during what should have been a routine healing mission. 6 rogue wolves attacked without warning, targeting her vehicle specifically. These weren't random rogues, but organized fighters, remnants of those who had attacked the pack house months earlier. "Protect the healer," shouted the lead guard as the convoy halted. Natalie clutched her healing satchel, moving to the center of the vehicle as her escorts took defensive positions. Through the windows, she saw the rogues circling with trained precision. This was no random attack. They had been waiting for her. A wolf smashed through the driver's window. Natalie's guards engaged the attackers but were outnumbered. The rogues fought with desperate ferocity. "Stay down!" A guard pushed her to the floor as claws raked across the roof. The sunroof cracked open. Natalie looked up to see a massive gray wolf peering down, jaws open in a predatory grin. Just as the rogue prepared to leap in, something slammed into him from the side. A blur of familiar dark fur replaced the gray wolf, followed by sounds of vicious fighting. Damian. Despite her rejections, he had followed her, and now he was fighting for her life. Through gaps in the melee, Natalie saw Damian facing multiple opponents. His movements were lethal, but even he couldn't fight 6 trained attackers alone. 2 rogues coordinated their attack. One feinted while the other struck from behind. Damian howled in pain as claws tore through his flank. Bleeding heavily, he positioned himself between the rogues and Natalie's vehicle, a living barrier protecting her. The lead rogue lunged for his throat. Damian dropped, seemingly collapsing, but as the attacker sailed over him, he surged upward, catching the rogue's underbelly with teeth and claws. The horrible sound of tearing flesh filled the air, followed by a pained yelp, cut suddenly short. Seeing their leader fall, the remaining rogues hesitated. Natalie's guards seized the opportunity, driving them back into the forest. Natalie flung open the vehicle door despite her guards' protests. Damian lay on the blood-soaked ground in human form, breathing shallowly, wounds gaping across his chest. She knelt beside him, healer instincts taking over. Deep lacerations, possible internal injuries, significant blood loss. Without immediate treatment, he wouldn't survive. "Don't you dare die on me," she muttered, opening her healing satchel. "Not after all this drama you've caused." Hours later in the Allied Pack's healing center, Natalie sat beside Damian's bed. His condition had stabilized, but he remained unconscious. She had refused to leave his side. Without his usual fierce expression, she could see echoes of the wolf he had been before exile hardened him. His eyes slowly opened, finding hers. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough with pain but filled with genuine concern, not flirtatious or possessive, just worried for her. Something shifted in Natalie's perception. This wasn't obsession. This was protection offered without expectation, sacrifice made without calculation. "I'm fine," she assured him, her voice softer than intended. "Thanks to you." Relief visibly washed over him. "Good," he murmured. When he looked at her again, his intensity was tempered with vulnerability. "I know you don't want my attention," he said quietly. "I know I've been persistent." A wry smile touched his lips, annoying even. "Extremely," she agreed, but without her usual edge. "I can't help what I feel, but I can help how I act on it." He took a painful breath. "If you'll allow it, I'd like to court you properly. Not with demands, but with respect." Natalie considered him for a long moment. This was either a new tactic or genuine change. "I can't promise anything," she said finally, "but I'll allow it. Court me properly, and we'll see." His smile was unlike any she'd seen from him before, open and genuine in its delight. "I won't disappoint you," he promised. Meanwhile, Hazel Walsh stood with Connor Reynolds at the private airfield. Her acceptance to the European Medical Academy had come with a specific start date, and that day had arrived. Her luggage was being loaded onto the waiting aircraft. The tension between them had faded, replaced by bittersweet acceptance. 5 years isn't so long," Connor said, breaking their silence. "Not for our kind." "I'll come back for holidays when I can," Hazel replied, "and I'll visit, if you want me to." The question in his voice was clear. "I would like that," she said softly. Connor took her hands in his. "I was wrong, Hazel. I tried to make you choose between your calling and me. That wasn't fair. No, it wasn't. I respect what you're doing." His thumbs traced circles on her skin. "Your work will help countless wolves, and when you return, if you still want me." He left the sentence unfinished. Hazel leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his in woven affection. "I'm not promising anything, Connor. I need to find my own path. But I'm not closing the door on us either. That's all I ask." The pilot signaled they were ready. Connor released her hands slowly. "Safe journey," he said, voice rough with emotion. Hazel walked toward the plane. At the steps, she turned for one last look. Connor stood exactly where she'd left him. He raised a hand in farewell and she returned the gesture. As the plane lifted into the sky, taking her toward her future in Europe, Hazel felt both the weight of what she was leaving and the lightness of possibility ahead. 5 years wasn't so long, not for their kind. And some bonds, she was beginning to believe, could stretch across continents without breaking. Chapter 300, The Legacy Continues. The first contraction hit me like a wave crashing against shore. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white as pain radiated through my abdomen. "Scarlet?" Roman was at my side instantly, his hand on my lower back. "Is it time?" I nodded, unable to speak as another contraction followed, stronger than the first. Through the window, I could see the full moon rising, large and luminous against the darkening sky. "The full moon," I whispered when I could breathe again. "Our sun has chosen a powerful night to enter this world." Roman's eyes widened slightly. In wolf culture, birth during the full moon was considered a powerful omen, a sign the pup would possess great strength and perhaps unusual abilities. Luna Catherine appeared in the doorway, taking in the situation with one glance. "It's begun," she stated, her voice calm but her eyes alight with excitement. "Come, Scarlet, everything is prepared." The Thorn Pack birthing room had been ready for weeks, waiting for this moment. As Roman helped me down the corridor, I could feel the pack's energy shift. Word spread quickly. Our Luna was in labor. The Alpha's heir was coming. The next hours passed in a blur of pain and determination. Luna Catherine stayed by my side, her gentle hands guiding me through each contraction. Roman refused to leave, ignoring tradition that said males should wait elsewhere during birth. His presence anchored me when the pain threatened to sweep me away. "You're doing wonderfully," Luna Catherine encouraged as the labor intensified. "He's strong, this one, fighting to meet his parents." "Fighting is right," I gasped, sweat beading on my forehead. "He has his father's stubbornness." Roman smiled despite his concern, squeezing my hand, and his mother's spirit. The full moon reached its zenith as my labor reached its peak. The room filled with its silver light, casting everything in an otherworldly glow. The ancient wolves believed that pups born under the full moon's direct light carried part of the moon's power within them. "One more push, Scarlet," Luna Catherine urged. "He's almost here." With a final surge of effort that left me breathless, I felt my son enter the world. His first cry split the air, strong, indignant, alive. "He's here," Roman whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Our son is here." Luna Catherine cleaned him quickly before placing him in my arms. The moment I held him against my chest, my entire world shifted. Every hardship, every pain, every struggle in my life suddenly made sense. They had all led me to this perfect moment, to this perfect child. "He's beautiful," I whispered, tracing a finger over his tiny features. His eyes, when they briefly fluttered open, were a striking emerald like mine, but I could already see Roman's strong jaw in his tiny face. Roman sat beside me on the bed, his eyes never leaving our son. I'd seen many expressions on my mate's face, determination, anger, calculation, even love when he looked at me, but nothing like this. The hardened Alpha's expression had completely transformed, softened with wonder and fierce protectiveness. "Would you like to hold him?" I asked softly. Roman hesitated, suddenly looking uncertain, a rare sight. "He's so small. He's stronger than he looks," I assured him, "like his father." When Roman took our son in his arms, holding him with such careful tenderness, I fell in love with my mate all over again. The bond between them was immediate and profound. Alpha father and alpha son, a legacy continued. "Liam," Roman said, not as a question but as a declaration. We'd discussed names, and though Roman had offered to choose one from the Thorn lineage, I'd expressed my wish to honor my adoptive father. I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "Liam Thorn." Luna Catherine smiled, her own eyes glistening. A fitting name. My Liam would be proud. The next 3 days passed in a haze of joy and exhaustion. Pack members came to offer blessings and gifts for the heir, each leaving more enchanted than the last by the strong, alert pup with curious eyes. On the third night after his birth, we gathered for the formal naming ceremony. It was tradition in the Thorn Pack that a pup wasn't officially named until the third night, allowing time for both parents to be certain of their choice and for the pack's Luna to prepare the blessing ritual. The Great Hall had been decorated with silver-blue banners bearing the Thorn Pack symbol. Moonstone lanterns cast a soft, ethereal light over the gathered pack members. Emma stood near the front with her father Miguel, their relationship still new but strengthening each day. Hunter Stone stood at attention beside Roman's ceremonial chair, his posture proud but his eyes soft when they landed on Liam. I carried our son to the center of the room, where Luna Catherine waited beside the sacred silver bowl filled with water from the moon pool. "Who presents this child to the Thorn Pack?" Luna Catherine called, her voice carrying through the hall. "I, Scarlet Winters Thorn, Luna of the Eastern Territories, present my son," I answered clearly. "And I, Roman Thorn, Alpha of the Eastern Territories, acknowledge this son as my heir," Roman added, standing tall beside me. Luna Catherine nodded, satisfied. "What name have you chosen for this child?" "Liam," we answered in unison. "Liam Thorn." A murmur of approval rippled through the assembled pack. Many of the older wolves had served under the original Liam, and all knew how beloved he had been to both Roman and me. Luna Catherine dipped her fingers into the moon pool water, then gently touched them to Liam's forehead. "Liam Thorn, son of Roman and Scarlet, heir to the Eastern Territories, I welcome you to the Thorn Pack." She began to recite the traditional blessing, her voice melodic and soothing, but midway through, she suddenly went still, her body rigid. The hall fell silent as Luna Catherine's eyes clouded, then began to glow with an eerie silver light. "Mother?" Roman moved forward, concerned, but I placed a hand on his arm. "It's a vision," I whispered. Luna Catherine's gift of prophecy was rare and unpredictable. We hadn't seen it manifest in years. When Luna Catherine spoke again, her voice had changed, deeper, resonant, echoing with power that raised the hair on my arms. "The child of moon and shadow shall unite what has been divided," she intoned. "East and north, west and south shall bow to his wisdom. Wolf and human alike shall find common ground under his guidance. A new era approaches, one of cooperation instead of conflict." The silver glow faded from her eyes and Luna Catherine swayed slightly. Roman steadied her with a gentle hand. She blinked, looking momentarily disoriented before her gaze settled on Liam with newfound wonder. "I saw his future," she said softly, for our ears alone. "A great alpha, greater even than his father or grandfather, a uniter of territories." I looked down at our son peacefully sleeping through his own prophecy, unaware of the destiny that had just been laid before him. Pride and fear battled within me, pride at the great wolf he would become, fear of the challenges he would face. As the ceremony concluded and pack members came forward to offer their personal blessings to Liam, Hunter approached Roman with news. "The Winter Pack is officially dissolved," he reported quietly. "Sarah remains imprisoned for her attack on Jennifer Moore. Daniel has joined a small pack in the far north, living in obscurity." I felt a strange emptiness at the news. The Winter Pack had been my birthright, yet I felt no joy in its downfall. They had made their choices, as I had made mine. "And the Amber Pack?" Roman asked. "Diminished, but surviving under Alexander's leadership," Hunter replied. "They keep to themselves now, no longer a significant power in the Northern Territories." My attention was drawn to a figure standing at the back of the hall. Darian Morrison watched the proceedings from a respectful distance. His shoulder, where he had taken a silver bullet meant for me, still showed signs of the injury. Though he had proven himself an ally to the Thorn Pack, he maintained a careful distance from me out of respect for Roman. When our eyes met, I made a decision. With Liam secure in Roman's arms, I crossed the hall to where Darian stood. "You should be with your family," he said quietly as I approached. "I wanted to thank you," I replied. "Formally, before all these witnesses. You saved my life, Darian. You saved my son's life. The Thorn Pack acknowledges the debt." Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something like peace. "There is no debt, Scarlet. What I did was right, nothing more." I smiled, seeing in him the wolf he might have been without the bitterness and exile. "Nevertheless, you have the gratitude of the Luna of the Eastern Territories." As I returned to Roman's side, I noticed Natalie standing with Damien near one of the moonstone lanterns. Their relationship had evolved in unexpected ways these past months. His formerly intense pursuit had mellowed into steady devotion, and her initial wariness had softened into cautious affection. They moved together now with the comfortable synchronicity of wolves finding their rhythm with each other. Emma approached with her father, Miguel Rivera. The human crime lord looked decidedly out of place among so many wolves, but his devotion to his daughter had won him grudging acceptance from the pack. "He's perfect, Scarlet," Emma said, peering down at Liam with adoration. "I've brought him a gift." She presented a small amulet, a healing charm of her own creation, combining wolf traditions with human craftsmanship. It represented Emma herself in many ways, bridging two worlds just as she did. "Your healing center is doing well?" I asked, genuinely interested in her new venture. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "We've had wolves and humans both seeking treatment. It's exactly what I hoped for, a place where both sides of my heritage can come together." As the celebration continued around us, I found myself drawn to the large windows overlooking the Thorn Pack territories. The full moon cast its silver light across the forests and hills that were our domain, beautiful and wild under the night sky. Roman joined me, Liam sleeping contentedly against his chest. He placed his free arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. "Happy?" he asked softly. I leaned into his warmth, watching the moon rise higher. "Complete," I answered. My mind drifted back over the journey that had brought me here. Abandoned as a pup, rescued and adopted by the Thorn Pack, falling in love with Roman, the painful separation and eventual reunion, the battles and betrayals, the final triumph. From lonely orphan to beloved mate and mother. From lost child to Luna of the most powerful pack in the Eastern Territories. I knew that challenges would come. They always did. Liam's prophesied future would bring its own trials and difficulties, but whatever arose, we would face it together, as a family, as a pack. Looking out over the moonlit territory with my mate and son beside me, I felt a peace I had never known before. After all the searching, all the fighting, all the pain, I finally knew with absolute certainty, I'm home.